Chapter 21. Peeves returns. You are not dead after all. Lu Sen said. Peeves, with only a head left, is still as annoying as ever. When he saw the little wizard wandering at night, he gave a wicked smile, and it was obvious that he had no good intentions. But he was suddenly stunned because he found that the person talking to him was Lu Sen. Ah! It's the little devil. Don't kill me. Help! Help! Someone can save me. Peeves let out a deafening cry and fled through the wall in panic. And his voice had been heard by Filch and his cat. The footsteps were getting closer and closer. Run! Harry took the lead and found a direction to run. But Neville sprained his ankle when Peeves appeared just now. It hurt so much that he couldn't walk. Lu Sen hurriedly took off his backpack and helped Neville hide in it. Filch was already not far away, searching every room, and Harry and the others were immediately as anxious as ants on a hot pan. Lu Sen said, "It's too late. Run." Harry wanted to take Lu Sen with him, but Neville was limping and had a hard time walking into the backpack space. Hermione grabbed Harry and Ron and said, "Run. Otherwise we will be caught." Lu Sen said anxiously, "I have my own way." "What are you waiting for? Run." The trio then escaped. Neville was only halfway in at this time, and Lu Sen quickly stood up to block the backpack. The next second, Filch turned around with his cat. "Aha! I caught you. The little wizard who sneaked out of bed." Filch said happily. "It's me, Lu Sen." Filch was startled. He raised the oil lamp and asked curiously, "It's Master Lu Sen. Why are you here instead of sleeping?" Lu Sen saw Filch's light flickering around and checking the situation here, so he quickly diverted his attention and said, "Argus. I'm looking for Peeves." This sentence was indeed a bombshell to Filch. His face changed instantly and he raised the oil lamp in front of Lu Sen. You mean? He is really alive?" "It's absolutely true. After I received the news, I went out to catch him overnight. After a night of searching, I have locked his location. And I just saw him with my own eyes." After Lu Sen finished speaking, he felt that the backpack behind him was no longer moving. Neville should have climbed down safely. "Oh no! Merlin! He's really not dead," Filch said, gritting his teeth. Just then there was a noise not far away, and Filch turned his head instantly. "What's that sound? Is that Peeves? Over there?" As he said this, he picked up the oil lamp and ran towards the direction of the sound. After running a few steps, he did not forget to turn back and use the oil lamp to light the way for Lu Sen. "Master! This way! Don't let the ghost get away!" Lu Sen picked up his backpack helplessly and followed in small steps, while thinking about how to divert the other party. However, when the two came near the place where the sound came from, they did not see anyone. Lu Sen felt that several people might be hiding in a room nearby, so he quickly said, "Listen. There's movement over there." He immediately took the lead and ran in a random direction. Filch had no doubts and followed quickly, panting. After running around in circles for a while, old Filch began to wonder if Lu Sen was teasing him when Mrs. Rawley's called out. Filch looked in the direction his beloved cat was looking and saw a floating ghost head flash by. "It's Peeves. There. I'd recognize him even if he turned into ashes." "Master, we found him," Filch said in surprise. Lu Sen also saw that the remaining head of Peeves disappeared behind a classroom door. Just as the two were about to go and check it out, they suddenly heard a few whispers nearby. The voice was different from the idle chat of the little wizards and seemed somewhat empty and vague. Soon the two saw several ghosts floating out from the wall beside them, led by Sir Nicholas, whom Lu Sen was familiar with. "Good evening, Filch." "Oh. Why are you here too?" "Mr. Lu Sen," Nicholas greeted. "Good evening, sir. Filch and I saw Peeves. He's right behind the classroom in front." Lu Sen said straight to the point. Jazz was pleasantly surprised and said, "That's great. Are you looking for him too?" Through a conversation with Nicholas, Lu Sen learned that Peeves' whereabouts began to be discovered by the ghosts this week, but he had been running away and no one could see his condition clearly. After discussing it, several people decided to find out what was going on. Lu Sen thought about it, and reached out to take out a stack of yellow talismans from his backpack. His wand was sealed, and the precious number of uses could not be wasted here. And even if it could be used, he couldn't kill Peeves with a sword in front of the ghosts. Nicholas and several other ghosts who were participating in the search looked over curiously, but they all moved away in panic, just like Ron seeing the spider. What is this? Unbelievable. I actually got a creepy feeling. My eyes. I felt like I was stabbed just by looking at them. Like the scorching sun. But it makes me more uncomfortable than that. The ghosts commented one after another. This is a ghost exorcising talisman, used by Chinese sorcerers to deal with evil spirits. Lu Sen introduced. The ghosts all gasped, especially for dealing with ghosts. How scary. Although Sir Nicholas was afraid, he still managed to remain calm and said, "That's good. This way we will have a better chance of catching Peeves." Under Lu Sen's command, he and Filch entered through the main gate, while the ghosts surrounded them from all sides. He counted down silently in his mind, and when the agreed time came, Lu Sen pushed open the classroom door and rushed in, followed closely by Filch with a lantern. Peeves tried to escape when faced with the two men, but was blocked by the ghosts who surrounded him. "You! What are you doing?" Peeves said in panic. Filch was in a good mood when he saw that Peeves was only left with a head and was so panicked and terrified. He grinned and said, "Damn Peeves! Today is the day you die." Lu Sen and the ghosts looked at each other, feeling that old Filch had misunderstood something. But Peeves didn't know their purpose and was spinning around in fear. "No, don't kill me. I don't want to die. I don't want to die." The desperate Peeves had experienced Lu Sen's horrific attack and already knew the horror of death. He was born from the minds of young wizards. He is a special spirit who has never experienced death and has never received any education before his death. Born to be mischievous and destructive, he is also a powerful and special spirit, which further fuels his lawless character. But he had offended someone he shouldn't have offended not long ago. He knew what it meant to be hurt. What it meant to die. Big tears flowed from Peeves' eyes. He was really scared. After being hacked to pieces, he fled in a panic, having lost most of his body and the ability to control objects. He hid in the sewers and dark corners all day long, and only recently dared to come out. "You!" Lu Sen felt pity and was unable to bring himself to do it while holding the talisman. At this moment, Pippi Gui rolled his eyes, shouted, and rushed towards Lu Sen with a fierce look. Lu Sen sneered in his heart. Sure enough, being kind to this enemy is being cruel to oneself. It's just in time. It's not my fault. Lu Sen chanted the spell, and the talisman in his hand suddenly lit up red. The talisman paper suddenly stuck to the top of Pippi Gui's head, causing him to scream in pain. "Damn it! It hurts. What is this?" Peeves' head trembled, and he was horrified to find that he could not move. Lu Sen struck while the iron was hot and pasted another circle of talisman paper on his head. He was almost like a dumpling. The wailing continued, but the sound became smaller and smaller. At first there were some curses, but in the end there were only whimpering and begging for mercy. The person who was most happy to see this scene was Filch. This scene, which he had never dared to imagine in his dreams, made him ecstatic and he danced and clapped his hands. Lu Sen glanced around and saw several ghosts who were searching for Peeves turning their heads away reluctantly, feeling a sense of grief for the loss of a rabbit. When Peeves, who was wrapped in the spell, was completely quiet, Lu Sen said seriously, "Peeves, the punishment you are receiving now is all your own fault. You have been doing evil and making trouble all these years. All the people and ghosts are fed up with you. That's why you are in this situation." As soon as the voice fell, a low crying sound was heard in the quiet classroom. "Wow, Peeves knows that no one likes me. But I'm too boring. I can only play pranks. I also want to play with everyone. I want others to look at me straight in the eye. But the ghosts think I'm a freak. The little wizard also thinks I'm ugly. I have to act naughty to attract your attention. Won't you view?" The scene was somewhat silent, and even Filch frowned in thought, as he thought of his own tragic childhood. "Everyone looks down on me. I don't want this to happen. For many, many years, Peeves has had no friends. Let me go, I will behave myself. I will never play pranks again, or else just kill me, woo woo woo. Stop torturing Peeves." The ghosts looked at each other in bewilderment at Peeves' crying. They had indeed never considered him as one of their own kind, and they hated him to the core. No one had ever tried to make friends with him. Of course, Peeves never spoke or communicated with people honestly. Among the onlookers, the first person to plead was the one that no one expected. "Master, let him go. Give him another chance. I am willing to believe him once. Filch squeezed out these words with difficulty, pleading with a complicated expression. After he finished speaking, he seemed to have unloaded a burden, and the look in his eyes when he looked at Peeves no longer had the previous resentment. Lu Sen glanced at Sir Nicholas and the other ghosts, and seeing them nodding, he said, Peeves, we accept your regret and mercifully give you a chance to be a ghost again. You must mend your ways. After saying this, he formed a seal with one hand and lightly tapped with the other hand to remove the spell on the talisman paper. The talisman paper started to burn, and within a few breaths it turned into dust and fell off. Peeves slowly opened his eyes, fluttered them twice in surprise, and immediately shed tears of joy when he found that he was free again. Lu Sen said to Peeves, who finally calmed down, You have to thank Argus Filch very much. If he hadn't begged for mercy, I would have turned you into ashes today. Upon hearing this, Peeves looked at Filch with gratitude. This old squib, whom he had played tricks on countless times, actually saved him. Lu Sen said sternly, I will watch you from now on. If you dare to act naughty again, you know the consequences. Peeves shivered and hid behind Filch, not daring to look Lu Sen in the eye. Filch subconsciously protected Peeves behind him, then tentatively patted him on the shoulder. Unexpectedly, the feeling was pretty good. Chapter 22. When I released Peeves and returned to the dormitory, it was already 3 o'clock in the morning. Lu Sen released Neville from the backpack, and the two of them quietly lay back on the bed and fell into a deep sleep. Early in the morning, Lu Sen was awakened by his powerful biological clock. He got up in a daze and did a set of boxing to refresh himself. Then he woke up his friends, and Harry and Ron immediately told him what they had been holding back all night. As expected, after separating from Lu Sen, the three little ones accidentally entered the room of the three-headed dog Lu Wei. The three frightened people ran away for their lives and ran back to the common room in one breath. The careful Hermione also noticed that the huge three-headed dog seemed to be guarding something, because she saw an entrance under the dog's paws. This allowed Harry to connect all the discoveries together, the small package that Hagrid retrieved, the intruder in Gringotts, the entrance guarded by the beasts, and of course Hagrid's attempt to cover up his mistake. Harry and Ron had already guessed that the small package was hidden under the secret door guarded by the three-headed dog. Then the two of them told Lu Sen what happened after the flight class. It was basically the same as he remembered, the only difference was that he and Hermione's brave act of rescuing Neville was seen by Professor McGonagall. The usually strict deputy principal gave Hermione 10 points for her wit, bravery, and excellent levitation spell. Lu Sen also gave her 5 points for his assist and bravely serving as a meat shield. However, Lu Sen guessed that there might be some other reasons behind the generous bonus, such as finding a rare seeker. Nothing else went wrong. As soon as Madame Hooch took Lu Sen and Neville away, Malfoy came out to cause trouble. He picked up Neville's dropped memory ball and planned to hide it, but Harry asked for it back in vain, so the two of them put on a broomstick stunt show. As the child of destiny with the highest talent for flying broomsticks, Harry, at the critical moment, dived down, made a sharp turn, tumbled and accelerated for 2.5 weeks, and then suddenly stopped and turned Z. In short, he handled it with ease and in a thrilling manner, and caught the flying memory ball in the air without any danger. This scene was captured by Professor McGonagall, who was concerned about the Gryffindor Quidditch team and was instantly overjoyed. The team is saved. Slytherin House has dominated Quidditch for 7 years. I was scared when Professor McGonagall called me away. I thought she was going to expel me. I was wondering if your prediction was wrong? Why were you congratulating me when I was about to be expelled? Said Harry. Ron continued excitedly, it turns out that Harry was chosen as the Gryffindor Seeker. Captain Oliver Wood said that Harry is the youngest Seeker in a century. The two chattered away until, during breakfast, a group of owls joined forces to drop a long, thin package at Harry. Lu Sen knew that it was the latest flying broomstick that Professor McGonagall had given Harry, the Nimbus 2000. Sure enough, after the package fell, an owl immediately delivered a letter. Fortunately, Harry opened the letter first, because Professor McGonagall didn't want him to show off his new broom in public. Harry and Ron, whose minds were completely focused on their brooms, finished their breakfast in a few bites and couldn't wait to pull Lu Sen to the dormitory. They wanted to find a deserted place before class to open the package and take a look at the Nimbus 2000. Lu Sen had no interest at all. He bought one before school started. After trying it, he just wanted to open it and play with it. But his roommates were so enthusiastic that Lu Sen had to follow them slowly. As soon as Harry and Ron passed through the hall, they were blocked by 3 people on the stairs. The leader was Malfoy, who deceived them yesterday. Malfoy couldn't believe his eyes. He looked down at him and said, "Potter. Weasley. I'm surprised you weren't expelled." Ron laughed and said, "Are you disappointed, you coward? How dare you lie about something like a duel? Shame on you. And you still say you're a noble pure-blood wizard?" "Pa." Malfoy countered, "You are the ones who are stupid. You knew it was against the rules to come out in the middle of the night, but you still dared to agree to it. And I am not the one who should be ashamed. Some purebloods have fallen to the point of not having new clothes to wear, and they are hanging out with dirty mudbloods. That is a shame." Ron heard Malfoy's sarcasm about his family and his disrespect for Hermione, and was about to punch him. Harry stopped the furious Ron and said to the arrogant Malfoy and his gang, "Get out of the way, Malfoy. Do you want to duel here?" Malfoy, Crabbe, and Goyle were still blocking the road with their arms around each other's shoulders, and said with a sly grin, "I noticed someone has violated the school rules again. Weasley, did you bring your broken broom? Did you forget that first-year students are not allowed to bring flying brooms? Be careful or I'll tell the teacher." Ron retorted on the spot, "This is not some crappy broom. This is the latest model, the Nimbus 2000. Have you seen it, Malfoy? Remember you boasted that you had a Comet 260? I bet the Comet can't even catch up with the tail of the Nimbus." The annoyed Malfoy's eyes turned red with jealousy. As soon as he waved his hand, the 2 followers immediately reached out to grab the new broom. Just as they were about to get into a mess, Lu Sen walked up the stairs slowly. He looked at Malfoy with contempt and said, "Hey! Isn't this Master Malfoy? You still look so bad? What's wrong? Are you not used to the school food? Or do you only like to eat leftovers?" Malfoy clenched his fists and said angrily, "Don't talk nonsense. When did I eat leftovers? If you dare to insult the noble pure-blood wizards again, I will." Lu Sen slowly took out the pitch-black thunder wand, and the other party was immediately stuck in his words. "What are you going to do? Eat a lot? Or bleed in public to prove that your blood is golden?" Lu Sen said as the magic wand in his hand slowly floated up under the control of the Chinese weapon control technique, and the next second it flew towards Malfoy like a sharp sword. "Ah! No!" Malfoy panicked and put his hands in front of him, too scared to open his eyes. After a few seconds, Lu Sen said with a smile as if nothing had happened, "What's wrong, classmate Ma? It was just a joke, I hope it didn't scare you." Malfoy opened his eyes and saw Lu Sen's wand slowly flying back, and then he caught his breath. He took a step back in embarrassment and almost tripped over the stairs. Let's go." Malfoy ran away with the help of his followers without even looking back, and this time he didn't even say a polite word. Ron and Harry were a little unsatisfied and didn't understand why Lu Sen let the other party go so easily, but the next second, Professor Flitwick walked down the stairs. Professor Flitwick was not surprised to see Harry carrying a broom, as Professor McGonagall had told him about that, and he even asked with interest what model it was. After the professor walked away, Ron was surprised and asked, "Lu Sen, you knew the professor would come, right?" "No, I just think that classmates should love each other," Lu Sen said seriously. Harry. Ron. Pfft. Just kidding. Malfoy is lucky. I heard someone upstairs greeting Professor Flitwick. Otherwise I would beat the shit out of him. Lu Sen couldn't help laughing. Chapter 23. After they had admired the flying brooms, they met Hermione on their way to class, but she ignored them and she had a complete falling out with them. Hermione even changed her seat, moving away from Harry and the others and running to Neville's table, which made the fat boy very happy. There was only one potions class on Friday. Ever since the note caused Professor Snape to misunderstand him, his attitude towards Harry was no longer as hateful and disliked as before, but caring and tolerant. This made potions almost Harry's favorite class besides flying class. Lu Sen found out sadly that Snape seemed to have turned his dislike target into him. Although he was not afraid to ask questions, and his strong psychological quality would not let him knock over the crucible with shaking hands because of the other party's harsh words, but being stared at and targeted was really not a good feeling. So Lu Sen, who was full of resentment, smiled on his face, but in his heart he kept thinking about the difficulties and hardships that the old bat would encounter in the future, as well as the various jokes about him that he had seen on the internet in his previous life, in order to relieve his wounded heart. At the end of get out of class, Professor Snape assigned a large amount of weekend homework amid the students' groans and sighs. When everyone was leaving, Lu Sen was unexpectedly stopped. Lu Sen! What's going on in your cauldron? Stay and clean it up before you leave. Snape said with his hands behind his back and a stern look on his face. Lu Sen clearly remembered that his cauldron had been cleaned up very well, although it was a cleansing spell cast using Seamus's wand. The friends were all very worried about Lu Sen, but under Snape's scary gaze, they could only leave in a hurry with a look of "take care of yourself." When the classroom quieted down, Lu Sen said without fear, "Professor, what do you want to talk to me about?" Snape stood on the podium, turned around and said condescendingly, "Mr. Lu Sen, you are very active. As a first-year student, your performance is indeed better than many idiots. But I hope you can focus on the textbooks, instead of some crooked, evil ways." Lu Sen was not impressed by Snape's whispering way of speaking that could scare the little wizard, and he continued to wait calmly for what to say next. This calmness made Snape very unhappy, but he continued, "It is rumored that you have learned some oriental magic, and you are smugly performing in public. Then Mr. Lu Sen, tell me, what skills do you have to show off? Little magic to coax girls, unpopular knowledge from the East, or little tricks of prophecy?" When Li Sen heard this, he vaguely guessed the other party's intention, but he was not sure. He tightened his collar and felt that the concentration talisman attached to the back of his neck was still firmly attached there, and he immediately felt relieved. "Professor Snape, I have always regarded the school textbooks and courses taught by teachers as my primary learning tasks, but as far as I know, the school does not have a clear rule prohibiting the learning of knowledge outside the school, right?" Lu Sen paused. He really wanted to see something on Snape's face, but unfortunately he got nothing. He continued, "As for what you call showing off, it's not really like that. I was just exchanging academic ideas with my classmates. You know, there are many differences between the knowledge systems of the East and the West, and they can refer to and verify each other. I have some Chinese books on potions. If you are interested, I can translate them and show them to you. They are quite valuable for research. As for other alchemy, history, boxing, and chi reading techniques, I guess you are not interested." Snape's expression changed when he heard the word aerodynamics. "In my opinion, they are all useless things. Hogwarts has everything you want to learn. For example, the aerialism you mentioned. Isn't it divination? We also have astrology and arithmetic divination. Is the so-called aerialism in the East accurate at all?" Lu Sen understood in his heart that this guy must have heard about his prediction ability and was talking to him. He thought about it and felt that being a charlatan was quite fun. "Since you want to get the prophecy for free, just wait for the surprise." So Lu Sen pretended to be angry and said, "Professor, knowledge knows no borders. China's magic culture has a long history and is broad and profound. I am just getting started in the art of looking at qi, but I can already foresee many things." Seeing that the topic was successfully introduced, Snape continued with contempt, "Ha! How can prophecy be so simple? As far as I know, most of the so-called prophets and seers are just in name only. Even the teacher, someone is just using the name of his ancestors to cheat people. Lu Sen, you should use your limited IQ on textbooks. Don't waste your time on the beginner's art of qi reading. What can you predict? Predict one for me to see." Lu Sen was furious, "You old bat! If you want to provoke me, then do it well. You dare to slander me? Fine, fine, fine. Let me see how I can fool you." He deliberately cooperated with an expression of defense, "Professor. The art of looking at qi is not a lie. And I feel that I really have the gift of prediction. My great-grandfather Lu Tao was a great wizard in China like Dumbledore. He was a legendary prophet. My art of looking at qi is a secret art written by my great-grandfather. It's very accurate." Snape was excited, but his acting was excellent. He remained calm and even showed disgusting contempt and disdain. He said in his signature low voice, "Really? Then show me." Lu Sen smiled evilly in his heart, but said sincerely on the surface, "Professor, what do you want me to calculate? The art of looking at qi can predict the past and the future, can predict good and bad luck, can find objects and treasures, can..." Snape interrupted Lu Sen, "You can predict anything you want, if your ridiculous trick can really predict something." Lu Sen pretended to stare at Snape carefully, while making meaningless hand seals. After a moment, he frowned slightly and muttered, "Strange, am I seeing things?" Then he fiddled with the hand seals again. He said nervously, "Well, Professor, you may not believe it, but from your face, I can see." Lu Sen deliberately looked flustered, hesitating and not daring to say anything. "What?" Snape asked coldly. "Judging from your facial features, you will have a bloody disaster in the near future," Lu Sen said. Snape said disdainfully, "What nonsense! It's just a trick." Lu Sen said anxiously, "No, Professor. I really saw that you would be injured one night soon." Snape stood on the podium and looked down at me. "Injured? Do you think I, as a professor, will get hurt in Hogwarts? I haven't shed a drop of blood in 10 years. You should save your little tricks to scare little girls." Lu Sen pretended to be at a loss and said, "But I really saw you bleeding. How should I put it? I saw some scenes. Hell. Yes, it's related to hell. Don't disbelieve it. There is another omen. Let me see. The person you least want to see is about to come. That's right. It's the person you really don't want to see." "Nonsense. I think you can't even make up a story. Use your Chinese secret book to burn for firewood. You might as well take a look at the tales of Beetle the Bard." Okay, I finally see your talent. Mr. Lu Sen, use your pitiful little wisdom on textbooks, and don't waste your time on these things. Go away." Snape said angrily. Lu Sen wanted to explain, but Snape had already walked away in disappointment. Seeing the other party leave, Lu Sen showed a smug smirk. When Snape finds out that the prophecy has come true, he will come to find him again. Lu Sen finished his homework alone in the afternoon, while Harry and Ron spent the whole afternoon around the Nimbus 2000. They couldn't wait to try out the performance of this broom. Harry would have his first Quidditch practice tonight. However, Lu Sen also encountered a happy thing in the evening. He received a reply from Dumbledore. Dumbledore's efficiency is still acceptable. Last night I asked him to issue a document allowing construction to begin, and he also applied to the Ministry of Magic for permission to use the Hogwarts train to transport construction materials, and everything was done. Dumbledore seldom speaks, but once he does, the school board and the Ministry of Magic have to give him enough face. Needless to say, Minister of Magic Fudge now consults Dumbledore whenever there is something, and he immediately nodded in agreement for such a small matter as using the train. The school board meeting was a little troublesome, as each member had to write a letter to Dumbledore, but most of the school directors supported Dumbledore and signed the consent form without hesitation. A few school directors who liked to stir up trouble saw that they didn't have to pay for it themselves and that everyone else had signed, so they reluctantly accepted it. Lu Sen immediately informed his family of the good news through Hedwig. The school also made preparations. The next morning, the following notice was posted in the auditorium and public lounge. "Attention students of all grades, the Ranger's hut is about to be renovated and off-campus personnel will come to work on it. For safety reasons, no one except relevant personnel is allowed to enter the construction site." Just after breakfast, the first construction manager arrived. This was the best candidate carefully selected by Lu Sen. Chapter 24. Hagrid, Remus. Long time no see. Why are you here? Ruber. It's been a long time indeed. This person was none other than Remus John Lupin, who was going to be the Professor of Defense against the Dark Arts in 2 years. He is well read and has a good level of magic. He is also upright and good at teaching. He is also good at modifying and using magic items. It can be said that he is almost perfect, except for one little secret: every full moon night, he will turn into a magical creature extremely dangerous to humans, a werewolf. This makes his life full of hardships. In his early years, Lupin's father offended the notorious werewolf, Griffin Greyback, who broke into Lupin's house on a full moon night and bit the young Lupin, causing him to be transformed into a werewolf. Lupin's family tried everything they could to reverse the result, but failed, so Lupin was left with the tragic fate of transforming into a werewolf every month. Fortunately, Headmaster Dumbledore was willing to create learning opportunities for any young wizard, and he overcame all difficulties to allow little Lupin to enter Hogwarts. Dumbledore also built a secret passage for him to the Shrieking Shack and planted a rare whomping willow at the entrance. This way, Lupin could go to the Shrieking Shack alone on a full moon night and hide without hurting others in his werewolf form. During his school days, Lupin was lucky enough to meet 3 good friends: Harry's father James Potter, Sirius Black, and Peter Pettigrew. The 3 of them discovered his secret, and in order to accompany Lupin in the werewolf state through the painful transformation period, the friends secretly learned the difficult transfiguration technique that can transform into an animal form animagus. After that, the foursome happily toured the campus at night. Later, they worked together to create a live map that showed all the secret passages in Hogwarts and everyone's location. But the happy times were short-lived. After graduation, Lupin's life became even more difficult. He simply couldn't find a decent job who would be willing to hire a werewolf. Only Lu Sen knew that Lupin was the most normal, capable, and respected professor of defense against the dark arts in the next 7 years. So when he planned to set up a construction company, the first person he thought of was him. After Lupin and Hagrid had a cordial hug, he turned around and saw Lu Sen and greeted him, "So I guess you are Master Lu Sen." Lu Sen smiled kindly and said, "Just call me Lu Sen. Also, has anyone ever told you that you have a teacher's temperament? I think you are very suitable to be a professor." Lupin was a little stunned. This was the first time he heard someone talk about him like this. Although one of his dreams was to become a teacher, he thought that there was no hope for him in this life given his werewolf background. Lu Sen looked him up and down. Lupin looked much older than people of his age, with some grey hair. His face was a little haggard, but his eyes were gentle and bright. Hagrid noticed the change in Lupin at this time. He knew that he had not had an easy life. Even though he was careless and never paid attention to his clothes, he found that Lupin was wearing a brand new, fashionable windbreaker. The leather shoes on his feet were also shiny. The whole outfit was brand new and high-end goods. "Remus, you haven't told me why you came to Hogwarts? Are you here to visit the professors? And I have to say, you look good." "Haha." Hagrid laughed heartily. Lupin first looked at Lu Sen happily, then said to Hagrid, "I found a good job recently." As he said that, he took out a beautiful and exquisite gold-stamped business card from his pocket. The card was too small for Hagrid, so he pinched it carefully between his fingernails and read, "Galactic Group, CEO, Remus John Lupin." What's a CEO? What does this Galactic Group do? Lu Sen explained, "The Chief Executive Officer is referred to as CEO. He is the most direct leader of the company. He is directly responsible for all business and operational management of the company." After hearing this, Hagrid used his big brain to think for a long time and said in surprise, "Wow, that's amazing. Remus. So you are the biggest in the whole company. Then, you opened this galactic group?" Lupin smiled and said, "This kind of company management model is the first time I heard of it after I was hired. But the company is not mine, I'm just an employee. As for the biggest boss in the company, look, it's this gentleman." Hagrid turned his head following Lupin's gaze and asked in confusion, "Liason?" Lu Sen said a little embarrassedly, "It's me. But I'm just a hands-off boss. My family funded the establishment of a group company, which is registered under my name. Remus is an elite that we finally found after much investigation. The development of the company depends on him." Lupin said sincerely at this time, "Master Lu Sr. Okay, I was wrong again. Mr. Lu Sen, the establishment and development direction of the company are all determined by you. I just need to do what you arrange step by step." Lu Sen knew the other party's character and ability, and encouraged him, "Remus, the company has just started, and many things are done by trial and error. What I say as a child may not be right. In actual operation, I still have to listen to you. I believe in you." Lupin had been running into obstacles everywhere for many years, and was suddenly entrusted with an important task, so naturally he faced it with all his might. He took out the documents and drawings from his briefcase, and pulled Lu Sen aside to discuss carefully. Then, under the guidance of Hagrid, he went around the cabin to conduct a careful on-site inspection. "By the way, Remus, isn't Mr. Weasley here?" Lu Sen asked. "He has other issues to deal with in the ministry, so he can't come with us. However, he was the first to review the modification of the train and the Muggle items that the company will use. He has been busy in our company for some time." Lupin replied while measuring. Lu Sen felt that Lupin's magic level might be more advanced than what was shown in the original plot, and the magic he used was something Lu Sen had never seen before. Lupin first used a magic that was much more accurate than the guiding spell to determine the exact location of the construction, and then drew many pale golden lines floating in the air with a wave of his hand. Those lines quickly intertwined with each other, outlining translucent walls and roofs. The building on the drawing appeared in the air like a three-dimensional projection. Lu Sen only felt that the other party seemed to use the magic wand as a pen to draw a picture in the air. Then Lupin waved his wand very coolly and directed several leafy branches to be inserted around the construction site. As he chanted the spell, the small branches grew rapidly and in a moment formed a fence that surrounded Hagrid's hut for 30 meters. These should be a kind of rose, because beautiful flowers soon bloomed on them. That's wonderful. Mr. Lupin, I think your salary is too low. Lu Sen applauded. He was indeed a little shocked. It turned out that a wizard's civil engineering could be so poetic. The 3D planning map drawn by Lupin in the air emitted a beautiful faint light, and was surrounded by fences with blooming flowers. The picture was like a dream and pleasing to the eye. Wait, this doesn't seem right. Hagrid just realized what was happening and asked in confusion, Remus? Lu Sen? Did you make a mistake? Aren't we supposed to repair the roof? Chapter 25. Lu Sen had been hiding the blueprints from Hagrid and had not shown them to him until now. Lupin looked at the two of them and guessed what Lu Sen was thinking. He cooperated and said, Hagrid, repairing the roof is too unchallenging. And I'm afraid there is no need to repair your house. The Galactic Group will build a new one here, as you can see. Having said that, Lupin pointed to the three-dimensional picture he drew. Hagrid blinked and shook his head, no, no. This is so different from my hut. Lu Sen. How many gold galleons will this cost? You are so ridiculous. The projected building is certainly not Hagrid's simple residence consisting of only 2 round houses. It has a high spire similar to the style of Hogwarts, and also has the simplicity and grandeur of postmodernism. The entire building covers an area of more than 600 square meters, with a garden in the front, a courtyard and a stable in the back. The doors are tall, the columns are gorgeous, the windows are bright and shiny, and it is elegant and grand. Lupin was very happy that Hagrid was about to live in a beautiful and comfortable new house, and gave a brief introduction to the building. He then explained, don't worry about the money. The financial strength of Galaxy Group is beyond your and my imagination. And this time we are not only building the Ranger's hut, but also showing everyone the company's capabilities. Lu Sen continued, yes, Hagrid. Dumbledore has agreed, so what are you worried about? We can use your cabin to advertise. We can also practice the company's new construction business. Brother High hesitated and said, but I won't be used to it. It's too big. It's okay. See the room with many windows on the side? It will be arranged according to your original cabin, and you can get used to it slowly. Lu Sen said. After comforting Hagrid, Lupin went to the castle to hand over the construction documents to Headmaster Dumbledore, and also caught up with the professors. Lupin had lunch at the Gryffindor table, and the young wizards kept whispering about his weather-beaten face and elegant clothes. The Weasley twins even came up to him and asked him questions. Lupin had a kind of affinity. He quickly became friends with the young wizards and won everyone's smiles and respect with his profound knowledge and humorous conversation. Of course, there were people who didn't welcome Lupin, such as Snape, who was sitting in the staff seat. Lu Sen noticed that his eyes were always looking over here, and he seemed to have a grudge against food today. The knife he used to cut the steak made a harsh sizzling sound against the plate from time to time, causing Professor Flitwick and Professor Quirrell next to him to turn their heads and cover their ears frequently. Lu Sen smiled secretly. Snape was like an enemy meeting and was extremely jealous. After lunch, Lupin, Professor McGonagall, Professor Flitwick and other teachers went to Hagrid. The twin brothers tried hard to come along, and finally Dumbledore discussed with Professor McGonagall and decided to allow the interested little wizards to go and watch, but they had to keep a safe distance. The little wizards readily agreed, and the team came to Hagrid's hut in a mighty procession. Lupin first explained the construction process and where he needed the professor's help, and then, in front of many of his teachers, he took the lead in using his magic wand to control the deformation of the soil. I saw big rabbits and little wild boars made of soil jumping up from the ground, and then lined up to go deep into the forbidden forest. Soon a deep pit appeared on the ground. Lupin turned around and looked at Professor McGonagall and Professor Flitwick expectantly, like a child waiting for praise. Professor McGonagall was impressed by this clever student, not only because of his special background, but also because he was smart and studious. He was the quietest and most diligent child among the 4 mischievous children back then. She smiled and nodded at Lupin, which was her grade. But then he and Flitwick looked at each other, raised their wands and started a new round of teaching. A huge mound of earth suddenly appeared where Professor McGonagall's wand was pointing, and then a dirt snake as thick as a chair rose from the ground. The giant snake's head slowly turned dark green, its scales were clearly visible, and its scarlet forked tongue hissed, causing the little wizards to exclaim. The giant snake slowly crawled out of the ground and also crawled towards the forbidden forest. Its body made of earth seemed endless, and it took away a lot of earth and rocks every second. On the other side, a hand made of mud stretched out from the ground, followed by an arm and a body in armor. This was a medieval knight made of mud. The knight turned around, squatted down, put his hand into the ground, and pulled up. There was another identical soldier. In just half a minute, rows of mud knights formed a queue. They marched in unison into the depths of the forbidden forest. The other teachers were not to be outdone, and they transformed the soil into small animals, including wild boars, deer, horses, monkeys, and mandrakes with legs. When various plants, animals, snakes, and soldiers transformed from soil enter the depths of the forbidden forest, the magic will be automatically lifted, and the soil will be spread harmlessly in the forest. Efficient and harmonious. Some senior wizards were itching to join in, but they all stood outside the fence and cast spells properly, because almost all the teachers of Hogwarts were inside. Lu Sen was also eager to try, but his magic wand was sealed. At present, besides being able to release the lighting technique, it was just an advanced learning machine. Feeling anxious, he picked up a branch from the ground and chanted a spell towards the pit. The friends noticed Lu Sen's actions, but none of them believed that a branch could perform any magic. However, Lu Sen was also studying Chinese magic while learning Western magic. Under the influence of Chinese magic, Lu Sen had a better understanding of spell casting. Spell casting props? You can have them, but they are not necessary. The ability of the small tree stick to conduct magic power is limited. After Lu Sen cast a transformation spell, green smoke began to come out of the small tree stick. Just when the friends thought the spell was dead, a small tank crawled out of the pit. It was the size of a suitcase and made of soil particles. The small tank followed the large group with a stumbling motion, and just as it entered the edge of the woods, it fell apart with a plop. Lu Sen was not discouraged and picked up another disposable magic wand, so strange things mixed into the soil-moving team, jeeps, tractors, tricycles, they were all small and had a very ugly appearance, dropping soil as they moved, but Lu Sen himself was having a lot of fun. Hermione took out her wand unyieldingly and recited the spell seriously, but such advanced transfiguration was beyond the ability of a first-year wizard to master. She finally had to use the levitation spell to make a large ball of mud float up and control it to fly towards the forbidden forest. Many young wizards who were not good at transfiguration immediately followed suit and used the levitation spell to contribute their own efforts to the civil engineering project. After a magical exchange, a huge pit of more than 30 meters long and wide and 7 or 8 meters deep appeared on the ground. This completely exceeded the requirements of the designed foundation. When the little wizards thought the show was over, suddenly a paper crane flew over Lupin's head. He opened it and saw that it was a notification that the supplies had arrived. Chapter 26. The professors asked the young wizard to wait where he was, and then walked towards the Black Lake with Lupin. When they arrived at the lake, the teachers called over a few small boats. After they got on them, the boats automatically sailed towards the other side of the lake without any wind. When they were far away, the young wizards began to whisper among themselves, not understanding what would happen next. Harry, Ron, and others surrounded Lu Sen. He was the initiator and investor of everything, so he must know what the professors were doing. Under the questioning and gaze of his classmates, Lu Sen had no choice but to act as the commentator. He looked down and saw that there were no intact branches. He thought about it and tried to use his fingers as a magic wand. He pointed his fingers at his neck and said, "Loud sound. Cough cough cough." There was no response. He recalled the application techniques of Chinese magic and tried twice more. Finally, he succeeded. After feeling it, it was much more difficult than using a magic wand, and the effect was not as good, but it could be used barely. Lu Sen said to the students in a much louder voice, "Students, welcome to the reconstruction project of the Hogwarts Rangers' hut." After everyone stopped talking and looked over curiously, Lu Sen continued, "Ranger Rubius Hagrid has been guarding the Forbidden Forest diligently for many years, blocking the dangerous creatures in the Forbidden Forest behind him. He is a loyal and kind person, and has given a lot of help to teachers and classmates. This construction will be fully funded by Yunhe Group and will be responsible for the design and construction. Galaxy Group is a newly born enterprise, with business covering construction, finance, clothing, manufacturing, and other fields. The corporate philosophy is, people-oriented. Leading wizards into a new era. Lu Sen looked around and found that the young wizards were indeed not interested in formal speeches, so he took off his formal expression and said with a smile. Okay, let me tell you something that you are interested in. I own the Galaxy Group. If you have any business needs in the future, you can come to me. I'll give you a discount. The little wizard was no longer sleepy at that time. He looked gossipy and envious of the rich. Seeing that the little wizard was in high spirits, Lu Sen continued. Everyone may be wondering how Hagrid's hut got damaged. That's right, I accidentally blew it up. The students were instantly excited. Some were shocked, some were laughing, and some, like Malfoy and his gang, were gloating. I'm sorry, Hagrid. But today, a more beautiful house is about to be built. We will use the best materials, the most advanced technology, the most professional construction team, and of course the best teachers and students. Let's build a beautiful house together to protect Hogwarts. Do you want to build a house together? A few young wizards shouted, yes. Lu Sen put a hand to his ear and asked, do you want to write your name in a history of Hogwarts? Most of the young wizards shouted, yes. Yes. Lu Sen raised his arms and shouted, do you want to blow up Hagrid's old house with me? All the little wizards shouted, think. 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 Lu Sen jumped onto a tree stump and gave the command, what are you waiting for? Stay in line. Safety is our top priority. Listen to my command. First row, fire at full force, okay. Lower your heads and retreat, second row, move forward. Get ready. In an instant, colorful magical light beams hit Hagrid's old house from a distance of 30 meters. The seniors used the spells of Shattered into Pieces, Shock, and Explosion very well, and the magic cast on the old house immediately caused bricks and stones to fly everywhere. However, the juniors were mostly funny. Burning hot, quickly frozen, even cleaned up, and flocks of birds were all used. Not only were the magic spells varied, but their accuracy and success rates were also laughably low. Lu Sen couldn't help but feel worried for these little wizards in the greenhouse. That's it. That's it. The little wizards were having fun, and Hagrid's old house, which had been emptied, turned into bricks and rubble in an instant. The supervisors spontaneously organized discipline, and at Lu Sen's suggestion, released a spring of clear water into the burning ruins. Before the excitement had worn off, the sharp-eyed little wizard suddenly noticed some movement on the black lake. What do you think that is? Everyone looked over and saw a huge dragon-like creature slowly floating on the lake. When they got closer to the river bank, the little wizards could see clearly that these were actually large ships transformed from train carriages. Lu Sen proposed to use the Hogwarts Express to transport building materials. After approval by the Ministry of Magic, the red steam locomotive that picked up students was used again, but with 10 freight cars attached to the back, fully loaded. The original plan was for Lupin to lead the team, with a newly hired wizard from the Galactic Group on each carriage. After arriving at Hogsmeade Station, they would use magic to lighten the weight of the carriages, and then let the train run on the road, bypassing the cabin by land transport. With the help of the teachers, the train was transformed into a boat. Across the Black Lake, a straight line between 2 points. Great! It's magical! In the face of magic, don't worry about the principle of buoyancy or Archimedes' formula, just do it. The heavy train carriage, after turning into a ship, floats steadily on the water. You can't tell how deep its draft is. It looks like a light wooden boat. When they reached the shore, Professor McGonagall, who was in the lead, waved her wand, and the boat quickly transformed back into a locomotive. It then unscientifically drove out of the muddy river beach and ran steadily on the dirt road with its iron wheels. With the joint efforts of the teachers and Galaxy Group staff, the carriages at the back were also quickly transformed and cast with magic to reduce weight. A train whirred to the construction site, emitting black smoke. It had been a long time since the teachers had performed magic at such a high intensity, especially the elderly Professors McGonagall and Flitwick, who all showed signs of fatigue. Lu Sen quickly borrowed Harry's wand, used a transfiguration spell to conjure up a chair and lifted it up. The senior students followed suit and produced tables and chairs for the teachers to rest. The chair Lu Sen conjured up was soft and its shape was far from what he expected. It was the worst among all. But Professor McGonagall smiled and pointed out the shortcomings in the spell. After all, Lu Sen was only a first-year student, and it was not easy to cast a spell with someone else's wand and achieve such an effect. Seeing that the teachers were so tired, Lu Sen couldn't help but think in his heart that wizards were still too dependent on their own magic power, and did everything by themselves using magic wands to cast spells. Such large-scale spell casting consumes a huge amount of magic power. If it is an ordinary person, it is not as convenient as a magician to rely on large machines, but it can be popularized. Healthy adults can operate it proficiently in a few months. Billions of people are available worldwide. But what about magicians? Only those with superb skills and strong magical power can do what they just did. How many top wizards are there like them? Lu Sen brought out tea and snacks from inside the door, so that everyone who had just worked hard to cast a spell could take a break, but his mind was full of wild thoughts. Suddenly Hagrid was the first to notice his old house. With his exclamation, the teachers realized that it had become a ruin. The little wizards all took a step back at the same time, making Lu Sen stand out. Lu Sen, embarrassing face. Do you guys care about that? I didn't even get to play it just now. Chapter 27. After being disloyally pointed out by his classmates, Lu Sen was collectively criticized by the teachers. However, after the seniors' stories and pleas, the teachers were not really angry. Instead, they were very pleased that the little wizards had received practical training. After a while, Lupin called the employees of the Galaxy Group together, and after counting the materials and confirming the operating procedures, they began formal construction. The Galaxy Group has sent 10 employees to await Lupin's dispatch. Each wizard has gone through layers of screening. Not only must they have outstanding magical skills, but they must also have flexible thinking and strong team awareness. More than half of them were wizards who had just graduated, and some were supervisors or Quidditch players. Now that they were back at their alma mater to build it, everyone was extremely focused. Lupin was the first to wave his wand, controlling the steel bars to float up and insert them into the excavated foundation one by one according to the drawings. The employees of the Galaxy Group also raised their wands and worked in pairs, some tying up the steel bars to shape them, some filling the gaps with stones, and some measuring, monitoring and assisting in corrections. There are also 4 wizards who are responsible for mixing concrete. Yes, Lu Sen's design is to use Muggle materials for the foundation construction. A large amount of lake water was summoned, and sand, cement, and pebbles were mobilized from the train. The 4 were mixed evenly in mid-air. Under the effect of magic, the concrete prepared was more detailed and perfect than that mixed by cement mixers. The teachers did not intervene at this time. This was Lupin's intention. He wanted to take this opportunity to run in the team and verify the operation process. The entire construction process was orderly, and the allocation and construction of all materials were quickly deployed under Lupin's command. It only took 1 hour. All the processes were completed. During this time, Lu Sen acted as a photographer and took several sets of photos from different angles for later use. Under the influence of magic, without using any equipment, only 11 wizards built a beautiful house. This efficiency and convenience is unimaginable for Muggles in ordinary society. Moreover, under the effect of magic, the steel bars are directly fused together without welding. The cement does not need to be cured, it solidifies directly into the best state. The new house does not need to be aired, you can move in directly with your luggage. After the main structure was completed, the teachers and students of the school gave sincere applause and cheers to this pleasing construction process. If this is the original way of building houses in the magical world, then whatever you think of will come true. When building with bricks and stones, don't consider the load-bearing limit and stress concentration. Just use a reinforcement spell to solve the problem. While covering the house, you realized that you forgot to leave any doors and windows. It doesn't matter, I'll use the transfiguration spell to get rid of you. While I was renovating, I suddenly wanted to add another room next to the second floor. Sure, I can just build it outside and stick a permanent spell on it. So except for castles like Hogwarts that were designed by masters, most buildings in the wizarding world are crooked and their interiors are very complicated. Magicians build it however they want, and use magic to correct any mistakes. The buildings in Gringotts and Diagon Alley are both crooked and dodgy, which gives you an idea of the wizard's architectural skills. It's rare to see a house built as smoothly as Galaxy Group and plan all the details so carefully. After the main part was completed, the teachers helped to move the new tables, chairs, and furniture from the train into the house, and put Hagrid's remaining daily necessities in there. In this way, a spacious and beautiful new house can be moved into. Teachers and students entered Hagrid's new house for a tour. As soon as they entered the house, they saw a huge living room. The high door frame meant that Hagrid no longer had to lower his head to enter the house. At the end on the right was a semicircular living area with large and bright windows. The stove was in the corner. When warming up by the fire, one could see the forbidden forest and the lights of the castle by just looking up. To the left of the stove is a bright and spacious kitchen area, where Hagrid can show off his cooking skills to his heart's content, including but not limited to rock pancakes. On the left side of the living room there is a double door, which leads to a very spacious activity room where little wizards can even hold a small dance party. There are several rooms on the second floor that can be used as guest rooms or small activity rooms. The main tower on the third floor is the lookout room and bedroom, where the view is better and you can see the surroundings at a glance. Of course, the one who was more excited than the excited little wizards was Hagrid. The sturdy half-giant was so moved that he burst into tears. He took out a handkerchief as big as a tablecloth and kept wiping his tears, while expressing gratitude to everyone. Lucien had the foresight to throw away all of Hagrid's dirty clothes and rags and replace them with new ones, otherwise the scene of him wiping his tears with the spliced-together dirty rags would have really ruined the atmosphere. Seeing the good atmosphere, Lucien suddenly had an idea and whispered in Professor McGonagall's ear. Professor McGonagall thought about it for a moment and discussed it quietly with Hagrid and the teachers, and actually agreed. She clapped her hands to quiet everyone down. Ladies and gentlemen, today is a day to celebrate. The Ranger's house has been rebuilt, and everyone here has contributed to it. Little wizards, you have learned a valuable lesson through your actions. That is, working together can accomplish any impossible task. So I agreed to Mr. Lucien's proposal, that is, to hold a small celebration banquet here, in Hagrid's new house later. The little wizards cheered immediately. Flitwick led the senior students to cast a spell to fill the house with flowers and ribbons. Professor Sprout took a few children to the garden outside to plant flowers and vegetables. The other teachers directed the students to place tables and chairs to decorate the scene. Professor McGonagall personally took Lucien, Lupin, and others back to the castle. She first reported the news of the completion and the celebration banquet to Dumbledore. Then she notified the house elves in the kitchen that half of the food for dinner would be sent to Hagrid's new house. By the evening, more and more little wizards learned what had happened in the afternoon, and they all called their friends to join in the fun. As a result, more and more people came and the house could not accommodate them. They had to move the tables and chairs from the auditorium and hold the celebration banquet outside. Almost all the teachers and students in the school came. Hagrid's new house was suddenly bustling with activity. Since they were outdoors, the Weasley brothers had room to display their talents and they happily released fireworks into the sky. Finally, the teachers also joined in, decorating the night sky with more gorgeous magic fireworks, making it look like a dream. After eating and drinking, the teachers moved the tables and chairs away, lit a beautiful bonfire in the middle of the courtyard, and used magic to play beautiful music. The celebration dance began. Senior students showed off their dancing skills, and even Professor McGonagall danced at Flitwick's invitation. What impressed people was that Flitwick used magic to float in the air and his dancing skills were actually quite good. The party lasted until about 9 o'clock in the evening, when everyone ended the celebration reluctantly. Hagrid had a belly full of wine, and when everyone left, he staggered to his feet to see them off, crying and laughing like a 3-meter-tall child. When Lupin was about to leave, he said goodbye to Lucien and asked for a week's leave with a complicated expression. Lucien agreed without hesitation. Of course he knew what was going on. It would be a full moon tomorrow night. Chapter 28. In the next few days, Lucien searched for information about the wolf poison potion, but regretfully discovered that this drug that could allow a werewolf to retain his sanity while transforming had not yet been invented. The small group of werewolves has always suffered from discrimination and has a low social status, so there are not many wizards researching related drugs. If time continues to develop normally, it will take another 2 years for the wolfsbane potion to be invented. Every time Lupin transforms, he suffers a lot and is also very dangerous to the people around him. Can we speed up drug development? Lucien pondered over it and finally recalled a clue. Professor Slughorn really likes to attract students with potential. One of his students' uncle is the inventor of the wolfsbane potion and has also won the Order of Merlin. Based on this clue, Lucien checked the wizards who were researching werewolf potions, and he actually screened out the suspected inventor Damocles Belby. Damocles Belby once published a potion-themed paper on how to keep werewolves sane in Transfiguration today, and his nephew Marcus Belby is currently attending Ravenclaw. That's him. Damocles Belby. Lu Sen secretly contacted the other party and asked about the progress of the drug research and development, only to find out that the project had been shelved. The theoretical research of this potion has been basically completed, but the required potion raw materials are of various types, and it is not only expensive but also extremely time-consuming. Damocles Belby had to run around for gold galleons, and even worked as a laborer to make medicine for others in order to earn funds. Potions master is a very lucrative profession, but Damocles became poor because of his research. Damocles' family couldn't understand this, and his own brother even cut off all contact with him. Money is not everything, but without money, nothing is possible. This sentence is applicable everywhere. Coincidentally, Galaxy Group is not short of money. Lu Sen immediately wrote a letter to his uncle, the financial backer behind the scenes, and his mother, a shareholder, recommending this potential alchemist and explaining the effects of the Wolfsbane potion. From an investment perspective, the market return rate of Wolfsbane potion is destined to be low. But from the perspective of impact, this investment is still very meaningful. So when Lupin returned from his sick leave a week later, he was assigned a new task to assist Damocles Belby in developing the Wolfsbane potion. Lupin, who had just received the task, was completely disheartened, thinking that his identity had been exposed and that his boss was trying to get rid of him in disguise. It turns out that Lu Sen knew about his werewolf origin when he first started recruiting, and didn't care at all. Lupin, who had been wandering for half his life, was immediately filled with gratitude and said that his life would belong to the Galactic Group from now on. Of course Lu Sen didn't want his life, he just wanted him to work hard and display his talents. As a result, the Galaxy Group established a medical division, and Damocles Belby became the chief potion developer. Lu Sen originally thought that with sufficient funds and the ready-made little white wolf, the potion would be available soon. But after communication, he realized that the research and development of potions is not that simple, especially this kind of time-consuming and material-consuming potion. Damocles' formula needs final adjustment and verification, and the slight increase or decrease of auxiliary materials will directly affect the efficacy. It currently takes 8 months to make 1 dose of medicine. Even if you multitask, it takes 3 months to make 3 doses of medicine at a time to verify 2 ratios. If you want to succeed in years, you can only rely on luck. Lu Sen felt somewhat regretful after hearing this explanation. It was not because of the money he was burning, but because he was worried that with his involvement, the development of the Wolfsbane potion would easily experience a butterfly effect. In order to prevent any trouble, Lu Sen decided to use an ultimate trick besides the trick. So on Friday afternoon, Lu Sen gritted his teeth and knocked on Snape's door. "Dear Professor Snape, are you interested in receiving the Order of Merlin?" Lu Sen asked. "No, go away." Snape was making medicine without looking up. "Are you interested in developing an extremely difficult potion? The kind that takes 8 months to make a dose?" Lu Sen continued to lobby. "Tell me about it." Snape suddenly became interested when talking about his beloved potions. Wolfsbane potion. A potion that can keep werewolves sane. Mocris Belby is making the final adjustments, but he cannot confirm the ratio of the last few ingredients. He needs a highly skilled potion master to conduct experiments with him. The Galaxy Group is willing to hire you as a special potion master with generous remuneration. Go away, I'm not interested. Snape showed a look of disgust and said in a bad attitude. Professor, this medicine is very challenging and is a blessing for wizards who are deeply affected by Wolfsbane. You will share the Order of Merlin with Damocles. Snape interrupted angrily, don't think I don't know your little thoughts. Don't you just want your number 1 lackey to suffer less when he transforms? That conceited, disgusting and despicable werewolf? You don't know how bad Lupin is inside. I will never make medicine for him in my life. Unless it's poison. Lu Sen knew about what happened between Snape and Lupin during their school days. Seeing that Snape was angry and didn't refute him, he thought to himself, if I don't make medicine for Lupin in this lifetime, according to the original plan, you will have to make a lot of Wolfsbane potion in the next 2 years. After thinking about it, Lu Sen gave up today's persuasion and came up with a plan. Professor, I won't give up. After a while, I will let you see my sincerity. On the other hand, Hagrid, who had lived in the new house for half a month, finally stopped complaining that he couldn't sleep after changing his place. Of course, Lu Sen knew that the other person was the kind of person who would start snoring as soon as he lay down anywhere. He was just not used to the brand new house and new furniture. Lu Sen also helped him redesign his clothes and outfit, and gave him another prophecy. he would meet his destined other half in 3 years, so he must seize the opportunity. Although Hagrid didn't quite believe Lucen's prediction, he still accepted his kindness and tried his best to tidy himself up before going out. So people were surprised to find that the always sloppy giant had become much more energetic since he moved into a new house. His beard was no longer messy, but combed and tied together, his clothes were no longer the same old dirty robe, but a brand new and comfortable British windbreaker and jeans. Of course Hagrid was unwilling to accept Lucen's gift. He felt that Lucen had done enough and well. But Lucen told him that this was an advertisement for himself, and such a large billboard was not easy to find. There was indeed a trademark in a conspicuous position on Hagrid's clothes, and a rune similar to a capital G was printed on the exquisite shield badge, which itself represented thunder and lightning, and could also be seen as the first letter of the word galaxy. The background outside the letters is enchanted, so wizards will see a rotating universe of stars. Muggles will only see still stars. This is of course Remus Lupin's idea. When building Hagrid's new house, Lucen took a lot of photos. The next day, he selected a few and submitted them to the Daily Prophet. He didn't even have to use the gold galleons to make it to the front page. He even received a small amount of royalties. After all, it is very rare to build a house in Hogwarts. Not to mention the construction method that has never been seen before. With the help of newspapers and word of mouth from Hogwarts teachers and students, the Galaxy Group received dozens of orders for house repairs and new construction in just half a month. After Lupin came back, he urgently recruited another group of people. In the old British wizarding world, the Galaxy Group had novel ideas, perfect craftsmanship, high-quality products and low prices, and it quickly captured a large market share in a short period of time. However, there are also old-fashioned conservative wizards who think that the Galactic Group's construction method must not be strong. They have no idea that Muggles had built skyscrapers with reinforced concrete decades ago. At the same time, Galaxy Group's clothing business also began operations, and Hagrid's clothes were the first batch of products. However, Lupin was not good at organizing clothing processing, and he wrote several letters to suggest that Lucen choose a suitable person to take over. Although Lucen agreed verbally, he was busy writing letters to the Ministry of Magic. He anonymously suggested to Fudge to improve the Hogwarts train. Chapter 29. You know, the original intention of sending students to school by train was to make it easier for wizards to hide themselves and reduce the risk of being discovered, but what era is it now? It's 1991. The Hogwarts Express is still powered by a steam locomotive. Does that make sense? Can it be hidden from Muggles? So Lucen wrote a letter of advice to Fudge in a sophisticated tone, telling him, "Sir, times have changed. If you want to avoid being exposed, you must keep up with the trend of the times. The train's appearance is actually very easy to solve. Just a matter of transfiguration. It can be solved in minutes. But this is the school bus of the most important magic school in the UK, and it also involves the statute of secrecy, so Fudge must approve it." At first, the letter fell on deaf ears, so Lucen used Diagon Alley as a transit point and asked someone to write more than a dozen letters in different fonts and sent them anonymously. But what he didn't expect was that Fudge somehow determined that the letters were written by the same person. Fortunately, Lucen transferred it, otherwise it would have been exposed. The other party's reply was also very simple, with just one meaning: as long as I am the Minister of Magic, no one can expect any changes. Lucen is very angry, so why not change? Just keep it stable? Good. So the recipient of the letter became the Daily Prophet. And it fell into oblivion again. Lucen didn't believe it anymore, so he submitted his work to the Quibbler again. The good news was that it was published, but the bad news was that no one read it. Putting this matter aside, Lucen also knew that reforming the magic world could not be rushed. He had no choice but to find something else to do, such as finding someone to manage Galaxy Group's clothing production. Lucen has become more and more disgusted with writing letters recently. They deliver messages too slowly. He had just received a reply to the letter he had sent to Mrs. Platinum 3 days earlier, but the result was not satisfactory. Mrs. Platinum simply disdained to cooperate with the newly established company to produce new styles of clothes. The letter was full of sarcasm and disdain for the new clothing. The cloth package Lucen had sent was returned intact, and the denim, windproof silk, and breathable composite materials inside were devalued to be worthless. Ron, who was playing chess, saw that Lucen was in a bad mood and asked curiously, "What are you fiddling with? You've been sending letters lately, and this time you're studying fabrics again." Lucen didn't care at first. They didn't understand many things even if they were told. But he suddenly noticed Ron's sweater. "Ron, is your mother good at making clothes?" Lu Sen asked. Ron's face immediately turned red. He smoothed the corner of his clothes unconfidently and said embarrassedly, "She can only refurbish and reduce the size of my brother's old sweaters, and modify second-hand robes. You know, I have too many children, and the clothes worn by my brothers can actually be used." Lu Sen thought about it and felt that the sweaters knitted by Mrs. Weasley were pretty good, but there were too many children, and most of the time she would just give Ron the old clothes, so Ron hadn't had new clothes for a long time. "Can I invite her to our company?" "Ah? Going to your company? What for?" Ron asked puzzled. "There is no one in charge of clothing production. If she is interested, can we let her try it? The salary is good." Lu Sen negotiated. Ron's eyes lit up and he immediately put down the wizard chess. The great territory conquered by his pawns was quickly occupied by Harry, who took advantage of the opportunity. "I'll write home right away. Harry, can I use your Hedwig?" Harry, who was killing everyone, said happily, "Of course. Just use it as you like. You and Lu Sen don't need to ask me. Hedwig is free anyway." A few days later, Lu Sen and Ron both received letters. Lu Sen's letter was written by Lupin. "Mrs. Weasley is very serious and responsible. She also loves clothing making. Her character is impeccable, so the head of the clothing department has been found." Ron's letter was from her mother, telling all the Weasleys in school that she had passed the assessment and successfully joined the Galactic Collective. The salary and benefits were very good. The family would no longer have to be so tight on money in the future. "By the way, there is a package with new clothes for Ron, the twin brothers and Percy. Employee benefits, new fabric samples." Ron put down the letter and hugged the twin brothers with joy. They finally had new clothes. "Lu Sen. Thank you so much. You gave my mom a good job. And you gave us new clothes," Ron said awkwardly, lowering his head more and more, and finally he didn't dare to look Lu Sen in the eye. His strong self-esteem made him not know how to deal with this kindness. Lu Sen knew the boy's temper and joked, "Come on, Ron. Do you think I reserved this position specifically for Mrs. Weasley? I don't want to be your brother-in-law." Ha 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 ha. As they were laughing, the scene suddenly became quiet. Several Weasleys in the common room, Harry who was playing chess, and Hermione who was reading in the corner all looked at him strangely, as if to say, "I didn't expect you to be this kind of person." Lu Sen suddenly broke out in sweat. He forgot that Ron really had a sister. "I'm kidding. What I mean is, there have been a lot of people applying for the job recently, but Mrs. Weasley is the best. Many witches refused to accept our newly purchased Muggle sewing machine, but Mrs. Weasley was not opposed to it and used it very well. Of course, she used magic to control it. The clothes she makes are of the best quality and she is a responsible person, so the company hired her. So, she fought for the position herself. It was not given by me." The Weasleys looked at each other, relaxed a little, but then sighed quietly. Ron felt relieved, finally he didn't owe anyone a favor for nothing. He stroked the new, smooth clothes and asked in confusion, "What about this clothes? Is it really an employee benefit?" Lu Sen hesitated for a moment and thought about how to put it. He did want to help the Weasley family, but saying it out loud might easily hurt a few people. His hesitation immediately made Ron and the others feel complicated. The twins' eyes lit up, they looked at each other and guessed each other's thoughts. Fred whispered, "When?" "George, I don't know, maybe when we're seeing you off at the station." Lu Sen didn't hear the two people's muttering. He thought for a moment and said, "In fact, the employee benefit is a set of clothes for each person. However, the Weasley family happens to be one of the 28 pure-blood families, which is a rare large family in the wizarding world. So the company decided to take this opportunity to advertise." "Yes. It's an advertisement." When Ron and his friends heard Lu Sen praising his family as a large family, they felt quite proud and showed a look of pride on their faces, but they still didn't quite believe what the advertisement said. Lu Sen pretended to be mysterious and whispered, "The first batch of trial products may have flaws and design defects. We need to try them on internally and not let others know. This is an internal custom-made model." Several people nodded, thinking that this statement made some sense. Lu Sen himself was also wearing new clothes of his own. He patted the Galaxy logo on his chest and continued to strike while the iron was hot, saying, Have you seen the Galaxy Group logo? The logo of the internal customized model cannot be taken off. Always promote the brand and advertise. If you take it off, you will be fined. Only then did they put their doubts aside and happily accepted the new clothes. But I still wondered in my heart, when did Lu Sen fall in love with his own sister? Chapter 30. By mid-October, the Galaxy Group's construction business was booming, and the clothing business was gradually getting back on track after Mrs. Weasley joined. Remus Lupin's letters were always hurried, but he was very content with such a fulfilling and busy life. During this period, Lu Sen was thinking about a question while studying and writing letters: why is the development of the magic world so slow? Lu Sen thought of the African continent on Blue Star in his previous life. There is no need to say much about the physical fitness of black people. Just look at the Olympics, basketball and football. Perhaps a long time ago, there were not only black people but also people of all skin colors on the African savannah. But except for black people, no one could survive in a place full of dangers. In the eyes of the brave black people, Africa is a paradise. They chase lions, roast crocodiles, burn fat cattle, and catch gazelles all day long. Their life is full of joy. While others are developing weapons and technology, they can live comfortably on their own, so why bother to make progress? What they lacked in tools they made up for in physical fitness. All they needed was a small broken arrow with a range of 10 meters and a spear made of stone or wood to have fun on the prairie. Later, when Westerners brought guns to Africa, it was another tragic story. Let's look at the Indians in the Americas. Their physical fitness and tools are average, but their location is great. The chosen place to start. The crops were all corn, sweet potatoes, and pumpkins that could be easily planted and yielded high yields, and there was also an endless supply of bison and fat fish. Later, when Westerners came to America with guns, it became a familiar tragic story. Innate advantages and geographical advantages may not be the only reasons for their backwardness, but there are similarities between them on the wizard's side. Through the Industrial Revolution, ordinary society has made several major strides in 100 years. From horse-drawn carriages to steam cars and then to cars driven by internal combustion engines, airplanes flying in the sky, submarines swimming in the sea, and spacecraft in outer space. There are many things that ordinary people cannot do, so find ways to achieve them. Explore. But for wizards, most of the Muggle changes are useless. They don't need to care what drives the car. As long as they want, they can wave their wand to go. If they want to fly, they can fly on a broom. If they want to dive, a bubblehead charm can solve it, or transfiguration can also do it. The convenience of magic can do everything, and the habit of not needing to explore the principles behind it have made wizards numb and arrogant. They have already fallen behind without realizing it. Lu Sen knew that the cultivation world in China was different from other places and had long been integrated with ordinary people. When the world adhered to the law of confidentiality, China undoubtedly became an outlier. The wizarding world of many countries does not dare to have in-depth exchanges with China. They do not have such foresight nor such courage. Lu Sen has learned from his correspondence with his uncle that China is now isolated from all other countries. Many new ideas and measures cannot be implemented freely. Chun Chun is being dragged down by a bunch of stupid teammates. Putting aside his random thoughts, Lu Sen had something urgent to deal with his magic wand. The seal that the two professors had put together was still on his wand, preventing him from casting magic outside of Transfiguration and Charms classes. Thanks to the magical sealing chain, Lu Sen can always feel the flow of every bit of magic power and the process of rune construction more carefully when waving the Thunder Wand. However good and detailed the simulation is, it still needs to be verified in practice. It's just like in a game, you have been practicing your skills in the training ground with proficiency X10 for a long time, so of course you will look forward to entering the official game and killing everyone. Although Lu Sen has mastered special spell casting techniques by combining Chinese magic, he can use twigs, paintbrushes, and even fingers as magic wands to cast spells. But every profession has its specialties, and small items like twigs will become scrapped after one use. Moreover, compared with magic wands, items that have not been processed and have no core are extremely clumsy to use, and their accuracy and power are far behind those of a standard magic wand. The spell casting experience gained with the Thunder Wand must be verified with a normal wand. So Lu Sen came to Hagrid's new house and said straight to the point, "Hagrid, I want to ask you for some materials." Hagrid, who was baking rock cakes, was wearing a fireproof apron produced by the Galaxy Group and said happily, "Haha, Lu Sen, I can finally help you. What do you want?" Just take it. You know where it is. Lu Sen helped him move, and of course knew that Hagrid was referring to his basement, which was piled with the junk he collected from the Forbidden Forest. Lu Sen was not polite. After thanking Hagrid, he went down the stairs to the spacious underground floor. The design of the basement was Lu Sen's special request. The area here is as large as the one above. It is surrounded by thick concrete, and Professor Flitwick was asked to help cast reinforcement magic. This way Lu Sen will have a place to conduct elegant and harmonious, dangerous and exciting, magic experiments. Unfortunately, Lu Sen has been a bit busy recently, and his Thunder Wand is temporarily in the learning machine state, so he can't use it freely. On a row of storage racks, Lu Sen saw at a glance a small bundle of things emitting a faint silvery white glow unicorn tail hair. This kind of pure creature is not common in the magical world, but fortunately there is a group of unicorns in the Forbidden Forest. Hagrid has been in the Forbidden Forest for many years. The unicorns are familiar with him and occasionally greet Hagrid from a distance. And every time this happens, Hagrid collects their fallen tail feathers and makes them into feather dusters. Lu Sen has seen Hagrid sweeping dust with it. This pure and sacred material makes the unicorn feather duster a great dust remover. I wonder if the Wand Master Ollivander would cry when he sees it. Lu Sen picked out a dozen with good quality and hung the rest back. I got some unicorn tail hair. This thing is perfect for making wands. Lu Sen said to Hagrid as he returned to the oven. Why only take this little? I have a lot of unicorn tail hair. Sometimes when I come across short ones in the Forbidden Forest, I don't even pick up the long and complete ones. You don't have to be polite to me, just take them all. Hagrid has never been interested in money. He treated a gold mountain as a dirt bag and said nonchalantly. These are enough for my experiments. I'll get more when I need them. By the way, Hagrid, where can I find some good wood? Lu Sen asked as he smelled the fragrance from the oven and helped Hagrid add a few pieces of wood into the stove. What kind of wood do you want? As he said this, Hagrid put on gloves, opened the oven lid and took a look. He felt that the fire was not enough, so he added a few more pieces of wood. Lu Sen thought for a moment, woods that can be used to make wands, such as yew, hawthorn, walnut, cypress, oak. Hagrid threw the last piece of wood and clapped his hands, then paused suddenly at this. What we just burned was cypress and oak. Lu Sen. The beams of my old house were made of purple sandals, but you blew them up. Finally, Lu Sen searched through Hagrid's firewood pile and only found a few small branches. Lu Sen gently bent the branch in his hand and found it to be very flexible. He was surprised and said, Hagrid, what tree is this from? It has a lot of magic power. It can be used as a wand. Hagrid thought for a moment and said hesitantly, this. I don't recommend you to use it. Although I don't know how to make a wand, but this. Lu Sen was surprised and asked, what's wrong with this? What kind of tree is this? It looks like a willow, but it's harder than a willow. This is the Whomping Willow, said Hagrid. Lu Sen. Chapter 31. Lu Sen finally decided to try to make a magic wand with the branches of the Whomping Willow. He had plenty of materials anyway, and if it was scrapped he could just ask Hagrid for a few more dollars. So Lu Sen began his tireless work of making sticks. Ron, Lu Sen, let's go. Let's go watch Harry practice Quidditch. He's been flying better and better lately. Lu Sen waved the carving knife up and down without looking back and said, no, I'm making a wand. Bah! Making a magic wand. Neville, Lu Sen, your package has arrived. Lu Sen was concentrating on polishing the branch step by step, referring to the book, please open it for me. If it is a letter from Lupin, please write a reply for me. Okay, let me see, it looks like your trademark, but it's bigger. And there's a note, it says it's for communication. Neville asked puzzled. Lu Sen put down the branch in his hand, took a look and said happily, finally made it. In the package were 2 epaulet-sized brands, shaped like the Galaxy Group's trademark, but the characters in the middle were smaller and three-dimensional, floating in the background of the universe. It was exactly the communicator Lu Sen had been thinking about. Lu Sen took the attached note, read it, and pressed the middle letter G according to the instructions. The slowly flowing galaxy in the background suddenly paused and emitted a bright light. Hello, hello? Can you hear me? After waiting quietly for a while, the badge responded. Lu Sen. Although there was some interference, Lu Sen still recognized that it was Lupin. The voice came from Diagon Alley. After an excited exchange, Lu Sen turned the communication badge over. The back is bright copper and also has a unique function. Lu Sen used his finger as a pen and wrote a sentence on it. With a light stroke of the finger, the words written seemed to be carved on it, and when I pressed lightly on the pattern on the edge, the words soon slowly disappeared. After a while, another paragraph of text emerged, naturally written by Lupin. Front call, back text message. Galaxy Communicator 001 experimental version. After Lu Sen proposed the concept of mobile phones, Lupin has been taking time to study it, and the finished product was only completed today. He. This is a good thing to make money. Lu Sen's eyes lit up, and he scared Nai so much that he stepped back repeatedly. In the next few days, Lu Sen continued to study his great project of making sticks. During class, Lu Sen quietly read the information on making magic wands, and then carved, polished, and painted them in his dormitory. When he encountered difficulties, he would discuss with his senior Cedric and look up information together. But the first test piece was scrapped within a minute of being made. Lu Sen just waved it and chanted gentle breeze, and after a gust of wind, the magic wand began to smoke. More than a dozen of them had different problems, so Lu Sen had to ask Master Ollivander for advice. Lupin happened to be free, so Lu Sen asked him to make a trip, and soon Ollivander's voice was heard on the communicator. After a few polite words, Lu Sen asked about the problem he encountered. Ollivander is indeed a wand-making master. In just a few words, he pointed out the misunderstandings that Lu Sen might encounter and the solutions. Lu Sen suddenly became enlightened. With the master's guidance, Lu Sen quickly corrected the plan and eliminated the errors in the production process. Finally, on the day before Halloween, the first stable and reliable homemade magic wand was born. Carrying a homemade magic wand, Lu Sen walked into the Transfiguration classroom with a proud step. But he soon threw his homemade wand aside, because the Thunder Wand was still more popular. In the Charms class, Professor Flitwick finally agreed to let the little wizards use wands. The first spell to be practiced is the classic levitation charm. There is a light feather placed in front of each little wizard, and their task is to cast the spell correctly to make the feather float. Hermione still ignored Lu Sen, Harry, and Ron. She was the first to perform the spell successfully and won 5 points for Gryffindor. Of course, this was expected by everyone. After all, she used a levitation spell to catch Neville, who fell from the sky last month. Ron recited the spell loudly in defiance, Wingardium Levio. Essay. 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 He waved his arms vigorously and read the last word hard, but it was of no use. You should wave your arms more gently, just a single stroke will do. And the way you pronounce it is totally wrong, you should pronounce it gently as Wingardium Leviosa. Instead of putting the emphasis on essay. After saying this, Hermione shook her head in disgust and turned to help other students. Ron said disdainfully to Harry and Lu Sen, "Look at how cocky she is. She thinks she's the first one to learn the levitation charm. Isn't that right, Lu Sen? You already knew it before school started." But when he turned around, he saw Hermione had turned her head back again and said disdainfully, "Humph. Some people don't study hard themselves, but brag about their roommates learning faster? Don't you feel ashamed?" Ron was immediately furious. "What do you care? Lu Sen is my best buddy. And he learns things much faster than you." Lu Sen, who was caught in the middle, smiled awkwardly, not knowing how to persuade the two. But Hermione turned her spearhead towards him. "Learn quickly? It's only because your wand is special. Save the time you spend on swindling and doing business and read more serious books. Oh, by the way, I heard that someone is still thinking about his good buddy's sister who is not in school?" Tisk 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 tisk. Hermione bombarded Lu Sen with a barrage of questions, causing the surrounding little wizards to sneer. Lu Sen and Ron were suddenly extremely embarrassed. They were about to explain themselves when Professor Flitwick asked, "Are you practicing magic, children?" He was attracted by the argument of several people and keenly realized that the topic they were talking about was definitely not the levitation spell. Lu Sen controlled the muscles on his face, forced a smile and said, "Of course, Professor. Hermione, the top student in the grade, is discussing the levitation spell with me." He emphasized the words first in grade and was furious at Hermione's irrelevant mockery. For the first time, he felt that Hermione was drifting away from the perfect image in his memory. Lu Sen gently put down the invincible thunder wand with its own lightning in his hand, and took out the whomping willow wand he had just made from his arms. This wand has not yet been finely painted, and still has the original willow branch shape, and its appearance is very inconspicuous. Wingardium Leviosa, Lu Sen chanted quickly, and with a flick of his wrist, the feather on the table was immediately lifted up by the breeze and floated into the air. Professor Flitwick looked at the branch wand in Lu Sen's hand in surprise, and then nodded to express his satisfaction with the levitation spell just now. Hermione glared at Lu Sen, but she was still unconvinced and said, "Who knows what's so special about this wand?" Lu Sen smiled, looked around, and picked up a toothpick that someone had thrown away from the ground. Amid the puzzled looks of the crowd, he pointed to the feather on Ron's desk and said, "Wingardium Leviosa." The toothpick couldn't stand the magic power and instantly caught fire at the tip, but Ron's feather flew up all the way to the ceiling. The little wizard who was watching the fun was stunned and shouted in his heart, "Is this possible?" Lu Sen elegantly held the burning toothpick like a match, waved it in front of Hermione who was standing there in a daze, and blew out the flame. The choking green smoke blew on Hermione's face, and she suddenly woke up as if from a dream. She sat back in her seat as if she had lost her strength. Her eyes were red and tears of grievance were rolling in her eyes, but she stubbornly refused to fall. After class, Ron walked around while imitating Hermione with a rich expression, and corrected his classmates in a haughty tone, "You have to read OSA softly. You can't read O.S.A. Haha. Who does she think she is? Professor McGonagall? What happened in the end? She even dared to challenge Lu Sen. She's been taught a lesson. No wonder she has no friends." Bang! Hermione happened to hear what Ron said, and she pushed him away heavily and left quickly. Ron snorted, ignored it and continued chatting. Lu Sen's thunder wand was sealed by Professor Flitwick again. He walked while chanting the levitation spell with the thunder wand. Although he could not use the thunder wand to release magic, thanks to the internal sealing chains, the magic circuit of the levitation spell appeared in his mind like slow motion, which made him understand the levitation spell more thoroughly. Lu Sen, who was concentrating on improving his proficiency, naturally didn't notice what Hermione had just done. After returning to the dormitory, Lu Sen handed the whomping willow wand to Ron, who was still using a second-hand one, and said, "Ron, try this wand." Ron was a little surprised, but he still took it happily. He tried it and found that it was actually better than his own. "It hasn't been painted yet. See if you can get used to it." "I can adjust it," Lu Sen explained. Ron said a little embarrassedly, "But, you made this with great difficulty." Lu Sen joked, "It's like you and Harry playing wizard chess. The result is no surprise, but the process is important. You both had a lot of fun, right? The same goes for the joy of making wands." "Bah, that sounds weird. Anyway, you don't understand the joy of making wands." Harry on the side. I felt offended, but after thinking about it, it seemed nothing was wrong. I was speechless. Chapter 32. At dinner time, several people came to the auditorium and were surprised to find that it had been newly decorated. The candles on the ceiling were all covered with skull-shaped pumpkins, and groups of magical bats were flying around. There were black and purple banners and decorations everywhere. Halloween is here. Lu Sen had some impression that this was a special day. What exactly would happen? Lu Sen was a little uneasy. The dishes at the dinner were richer than usual, and the little wizards were all pleasantly surprised and began to enjoy the feast. At this time, ghosts came in through the walls, danced happily, and made their presence felt in this special festival. Each of the 4 houses has its own resident ghost, and Gryffindor's most popular ghost is of course Sir Nicholas. He has a relatively calm personality and can help any little wizard who is lost or encounters difficulties. It can be said that he is fully worthy of the title of Sir. But there is one thing, if you call him by his nickname, Nearly Headless Nick, he will show you the broken neck without hesitation. Lu Sen pursed his lips with the tablecloth and said politely, "Happy holidays, sir." Sir Nicholas nodded slightly, bowed in an elegant ancient gentleman's manner, and said, "Happy holidays, Mr. Lu Sen." He hesitated for a moment and said to Lu Sen, "It's like this, Lu Sen, I have been observing Peeves' condition for some time, and it seems that he is in a very stable condition. I think the time may be ripe. So, I wonder if I can take up a little of your time later." Lu Sen knew that the other party couldn't wait to be chopped, so he readily agreed. After receiving the reply, Sir Nicholas thanked excitedly and then went ahead to make preparations. Lu Sen quickly sped up his eating speed and wolfed down the food on his plate. Harry asked curiously, "What does the Lord want to see you about?" Ron also slowed down his chewing speed and said vaguely, "You will miss a lot of delicious food if you leave now." Lu Sen took a sip of juice and explained, "Sir Nicholas told me before that he always wanted to join the Dullahan Club. But they didn't agree." Harry was puzzled. "Why? Isn't he headless?" Ron also agreed, "Yet his head fell off. Why doesn't the Headless Horseman Club let him join?" Lu Sen said with a smile, "Have you forgotten? He is almost headless. It's still attached. The ghosts of the Headless Night Club are all completely separated, so that they can perform performances like flying head in the air and head replacement, right? Who knows?" Harry reacted at this time, his eyes widened and said, "Then you are not going to?" He looked around in panic, and seeing that no one was paying attention, he stroked his neck with his hand. Lu Sen understood and said with a smile, "That's right. I'll go and chop him with my sword and be back in a matter of minutes." Ron hurriedly grabbed Lu Sen, who was about to stand up, and said nervously, Your thunder flame lightning sword makes such a loud noise. The professors will find out. Be careful." "Hey? Wait. Isn't your wand sealed? How about, use mine?" As he said that, he took out the Whomping Willow wand that Lu Sen gave him. Lu Sen chuckled, approached the two men and whispered, "I'll tell you something in secret. Illumination can still be used a few more times. Dumbledore helped me open a back door on the seal." The two swallowed their saliva and thought of the people who had been harmed by the Thunder Wand, Peeves, whose head was chopped off, and Hagrid's hut, whose roof was blown off. Thinking of this, the two suddenly became worried about Sir Nicholas. To be on the safe side, Lu Sen took out another communicator from his bag and gave it to Ron before leaving, and told him how to use it. Then he went alone to the empty classroom where they had agreed to meet. Sir Nicholas was floating around nervously. If he had feet, he would be pacing back and forth at this time, Lu Sen thought. "Sir, I'm here. Sorry to have kept you waiting," Lu Sen said. Sir Nicholas once again performed an impeccable ancient gentleman's etiquette and said politely, "I have been waiting for hundreds of years. This short moment is nothing. Thank you for your trouble, Mr. Lu Sen." Lu Sen didn't say much. They had talked about it before. Ever since they found Peeves with only a head left, the ghosts had been observing each other for a long time. Aside from the fact that only a head was left, Peeves' condition was stable, with no signs of dissipating or anything else going wrong. And ever since he was rescued by Filch last time, he changed his habit of playing pranks and found another happy thing catching little wizards who made mistakes with Filch. This caused many young wizards, including the Weasley twins, to complain. Lu Sen even received more than a dozen anonymous letters suggesting that Peeves be completely eliminated. "Sir, are you ready?" Lu Sen asked, taking out his thunder wand. Sir Nicholas was unusually excited. "I have been looking forward to this day for so long. Please." After that, he stood with his head held high and closed his eyes, waiting like a brave warrior ready to sacrifice his life. Lu Sen chanted softly, fluorescent shining. The long-lost thunder and flame lightsaber mode was instantly activated. After Dumbledore's guidance, the power of lightsaber mode was easier to control. Lu Sen made a slight adjustment, and the temperature of the thunder flame sword was completely restrained, replaced by a cold and chilling light that was as real as a substance. Of course, the sword was still surrounded by brilliant thunder. Lu Sen gestured a few times and scratched his head. This was the first time he had ever cut someone's neck. Sir Nicholas opened his eyes and took a peek, and saw that Lu Sen hesitated for a long time before chopping down, thinking that the other party was worried about his safety. "My dear friend Lu Sen, just go ahead and chop with confidence. Don't worry about me. I'm not afraid of pain. On the day I died, I was chopped dozens of times by the executioner with a blunt knife before I died. I don't care about this one cut at all." The knight still showed hesitation when he said this, and it was obvious that he was still afraid of death. But he had always wanted to join the Headless Horseman Club, but had been rejected too many times, and he had long since hated the piece of flesh still attached to his neck. Sir Nicholas was a little excited when he thought about being beheaded, joining the Headless Horseman Club, meeting new friends, and reaching the pinnacle of his ghost life. He let go of the last bit of fear and encouraged Lu Sen, "Come on, my friend. Peeves has proven that your magic sword can safely cut ghosts. So what are you still worried about? Go ahead and chop." Lu Sen saw that Sir Nicholas had been nagging and in a trance because of his beheading, and had lost his usual elegant and aristocratic temperament, and he couldn't help shaking his head. He thought that for a long time, people had called him Nick, the nearly headless, and it really made him resentful. Chapter 33. Sir, I'm not worried about anything else, but, can you separate the head a little? I'm afraid I'll chop it crookedly. Lu Sen held the magic wand in his hand and danced a beautiful sword flower. The Jazz suddenly realized what was happening and quickly lifted up the head, revealing the remaining flesh on the neck. Lu Sen no longer hesitated. He looked at the right position, took a deep breath, and slashed with his sword. A white light flashed by, and before Nicholas could react, his head had been separated. Sir Nicholas slowly loosened his hands that were holding his head in disbelief, and then controlled his head to float in the air. He turned his head excitedly and saw his headless body. He waved his hand and took a few more steps, completely in control. Great! Merlin's beard. My body. My head. They're finally separated. Ha 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 ha. Sir Nicholas's head flew up and down happily in the classroom. No one will ever call me almost headless Nick again. I can join the headless club. I'm going to tell my friends. Oh, and by the way. Jazz, who was about to fly away, turned back. He put his head and body back together again and expressed his gratitude to Lu Sen formally and respectfully, but when he bowed, his head rolled down. Sir, you have to get used to the feeling of having your head separated from your body. No need to thank me, it's just a piece of cake. Lu Sen picked up his head and said. Sir Nicholas hummed a classical tune and floated away happily, shouting on the way, today is really a day worth celebrating. Ha 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 ha. Ha 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 ha. Lu Sen did not take back the Thunder Flame Light Sword immediately. The sealed wand could only use the illumination spell under Dumbledore's control, and there were only 6 times left after this time. It was a rare opportunity to use the Thunder Flame Lightning Sword, so Lu Sen naturally couldn't miss the chance. He closed his eyes, carefully felt the magic power flowing in it, and adjusted the output magic structure and running line. In a blink of an eye, 2 months have passed since the start of the school year. Lu Sen has made new gains in class every day, and he has not fallen behind in Chinese magic. Recently, I have conducted in-depth research on the production of magic wands and successfully made a finished product. These factors combined have made Lu Sen's affinity for the Thunder Wand even stronger. At the same time, his understanding of magic, especially the lighting spell, has deepened. Without terminating the form of the Thunder Flame Lightning Sword, Lu Sen directly tried to change the operating state of the magic, and successfully converted several innovative modes that he had mastered one by one. The Thunder Blade became brighter and brighter, and the temperature of the external light suddenly rose. The length of the Thunder Blade also soared to more than 10 meters in a breath. The temperature of the entire classroom soared instantly. This is the 40-meter broadsword mode that further increases the attack power and explosive power. Lu Sen certainly didn't want to chop the ceiling again, so he quickly retracted this violent mode and transformed it into a completely harmless state. The flame completely dissipated, leaving only a soft white light, which shortened little by little until the light beam was retracted into the wand. Then the entire wand emitted a soft white light glow stick mode. Lu Sen wanted to try to make the magic wand fly by itself, but that involved the use of a levitation spell, and currently the Thunder Wand could only use an illumination spell, so he had to give up. Lu Sen stared at the soft glow stick magic wand for a while, reluctant to interrupt his precious time, and suddenly thought of the scene of cutting open Nicholas' head just now. It's not that Lu Sen didn't chop enough, but that he thought of a problem. After Sir Nicholas was split apart, his head and body were independent, but he could freely control his body and head. So which one is the main body, the head or the body? How is it controlled remotely? How is the energy transmitted? Although it was a groundless fantasy, it inspired Lu Sen. He controlled the glow stick in his hand to change from glowing throughout the stick to glowing only at the tip, and then combined the magic stimulation of the lightsaber and the telekinetic magic transmission architecture of the levitation spell. He slowly and laboriously adjusted the output of magic. Lu Sen, who was concentrating, felt the lightning in the magic wand crackling, and quickly tried and built Lu Sen's ideas and new structures. Wrong configurations were eliminated one by one, and the correct route in the arc flow was quickly found. A smile appeared on Lu Sen's face, and the tip of his wand became brighter and brighter, but the light did not scatter like a flashlight like the standard version, but gathered into a ball. And with a slight shake of Lu Sen's wrist, it slowly detached and floated up. Yet, A new mode has been created. This one is called, Lu Sen observed the ball of light floating in the air. It was about the size of a tennis ball, the light was soft and not dazzling, and it could move freely according to the command of the magic wand. Let's call it the lighting ball mode. Lu Sen named it casually. After directing the light ball to fly for a while, Lu Sen felt a little hungry again, so he turned off the light ball and returned to the auditorium. I hope I can catch the pie. Lu Sen thought as he walked. When he passed by two girls who were gossiping, he overheard their conversation. She cried in the ladies' room all afternoon. Yet, she must be angry. You know she always speaks arrogantly. She doesn't have any friends at all. She deserves it. Who told Hermione to be so pretentious? She always shows off her knowledge. In fact, there are many nerds like her in Hufflepuff. Lu Sen paused, then hurriedly quickened his pace. He remembered. A troll will run out of the basement soon. And Hermione is still in the ladies' room and doesn't know what's going on. Entering the auditorium, the dinner was still going on. The atmosphere was cheerful and relaxed. Every little wizard was enjoying the food and happily chatting with the classmates around them while eating. Lu Sen glanced at the teachers' seats and found that Chi Luo was still there, and he immediately breathed a sigh of relief. After sitting next to Harry and Ron, Lu Sen began to quickly sweep away the delicacies on the table in front of their shocked eyes. Wow, I rarely see you eat like this. By the way, did you chop it smoothly? Ron asked in a low voice at the end. Lu Sen swallowed the food and boasted about his heroic performance when he just chopped Nicholas. Then he pulled the two people over and whispered, we'll talk about Nicholas's job change to the Dullahan later. Do you know where Hermione is? Ron said indifferently, who knows, maybe the know-it-all is reading a book. Harry smiled nonchalantly as well. Lu Sen told the two what he had heard. They looked at each other. They felt a little guilty about Hermione being made to cry, but they still said they didn't care. Who made her so annoying? Is it Lu Sen? Think about what she said about you. Ron said. Lu Sen recalled the scene when Hermione mocked him during the charms class, and instantly understood why she had no friends. But if they don't save her, the wisdom of the three little ones will be gone. Who will lead Harry and Ron to fight Voldemort? Himself? No. Impossible. Absolutely impossible. Sighing, Lu Sen had no choice but to say, Ron, Harry, I have a feeling something big is going to happen tonight. Chapter 34. Harry and Ron had witnessed Lu Sen's miraculous predictions several times, and each time they came true. Hearing that Lu Sen was going to make another prediction, the two of them immediately became alert and pricked up their ears in wait. I saw some images of you too, well, how can I put it? Harry suddenly became worried, about us? What happened? What did you see? Seeing that the two people's emotions were aroused, Lu Sen continued, actually, it's about you two and Hermione. I just did a fortune-telling, and the fates of the three of you are closely linked. You will experience many ups and downs together in the future. Harry looked incredulous, but given the accuracy of Lu Sen's predictions, his expression was instantly conflicted. No way? My fate is connected with that nasty guy? Ugh! So disgusting! Ron said with an exaggerated expression. Lu Sen glanced at the teachers' seats and saw that Professor Quirrell, who was about to cause trouble, was still eating slowly. He thought that there was still plenty of time. An unexpected huge monster will appear soon, and Hermione will be in danger. You should hurry to the ladies' room to find her. There is still time. Just take her away and everything will be fine. After Lu Sen finished speaking, he picked up a garlic-flavored spare rib and started chewing it. Ron was reluctant to give up the delicious food on the table, and Harry was skeptical about Lu Sen's words. Are you serious? A giant monster? In Hogwarts? How is that possible? Harry said in disbelief. Ron looked anxious at this time and asked, are you attracted to her? Are you looking for an excuse for us to coax her into a good mood? But don't you have a crush on my sister? When Lu Sen heard this, the ribs he was chewing dropped onto the plate with a plop. He glared at Ron with a look of astonishment on his face. Who told you that I have a crush on your sister? She's still a child. Asshole! Lu Sen picked up the ribs and hesitated for a moment, then took another bite and rolled his eyes. Hermione is not my type at all. You two should keep them. Seriously, it could be dangerous soon. Seeing that the two were still hesitating and looking at the food and snacks on the table from time to time, Lu Sen added, "Don't worry, when danger comes, the food will be packed and sent back to the common room, and Halloween will continue. You just hurry up and find Hermione and go back to the common room directly. If there is anything, contact us through the communicator. Oh, by the way, here's this for you." Lu Sen wiped his hands, took out a stack of talismans from his pocket and stuffed them into Harry's hands. "This is the Golden Bell Talisman, Godspeed Talisman, and Light Body Talisman. Just inject magic power into them and stick them on your body. They will increase your defense, speed and agility. This time it's foolproof, go." Harry had seen the effect of this Chinese talisman paper, so he put it in his pocket solemnly. Suddenly he asked, "But why don't you go?" "Ah, well, Hermione's fate is linked to both of you, not me. And if I go, the scene will be too bloody and the children will have nightmares." After another round of deception, the two of them left the banquet, looking back every few steps. Halloween is an important traditional festival in the west of this world, and it is even more important in the wizarding world, so the banquet is grand and gorgeous, with an unusually rich variety of dishes. No wonder Ron and Harry were reluctant to leave. Lu Sen himself also had a rare feast. After half an hour, Lu Sen realized why these two guys were so slow. They should have replied. He looked at the dining table and was shocked because Quirrell had disappeared without a trace. Broke in. Lu Sen hurriedly took out his communicator and called his friends. But at this moment, Professor Quirrell suddenly ran in from the door in panic. "Troll! In the underground classroom! I thought you should know." After shouting this, Professor Quirrell fell to the ground and fainted. The auditorium was suddenly in chaos. The little wizards were frightened and screamed, fleeing like headless flies, not knowing where to go. Dumbledore had to release several dazzling fireworks and shout in a deafening voice before he could control the situation. Lu Sen didn't understand. What was so scary about a stupid giant? If he wasn't afraid of getting his hands dirty, he could have solved it with a lighting spell. "Just tell me, how many pieces do you want it cut into? How well done do you want it?" Under the arrangement of the principal, the young wizards lined up and followed the supervisor back to the lounge of their respective colleges. Lu Sen took advantage of the chaos and hid under the table to call his friends again. This time they responded, but the call was hung up immediately. "What's going on? He actually hung up on me?" Lu Sen asked, puzzled. After a while, the communicator vibrated. It was a text message, "Women's restroom. Help! Come quickly." Lu Sen was really speechless. He didn't understand why the situation couldn't be solved even though he had explained everything so clearly and sent both intelligence and equipment. But there is a better solution in front of him. Lu Sen certainly won't refuse the lazy option. "Principal! I have something to report." Lu Sen stood up and shouted. "Hey, where are the teachers?" In less than a minute, the teacher's seat was empty. The little wizards had basically evacuated. The Weasley twins had just taken a lot of snacks from the Slytherin table. They were almost at the end of the team. They heard Lu Sen's voice saying to him, "Lu Sen! Hurry up and catch up. Dumbledore and the professors are going to deal with the troll." After that, the two of them trotted away. Lu Sen was the only one left in the empty auditorium, looking disheveled. Did the wizards escape so quickly in an emergency? Lu Sen had no choice but to go to the women's restroom alone to rescue his friend whose situation was unknown. On the way, Lu Sen took out 3 yellow talismans while running, and after pinching his fingers and chanting a spell, paper cranes quickly took shape. With a light breath, the paper cranes flapped their wings and flew into the sky. Special skill, tell the teacher remotely. There is a message from Lu Sen on the paper crane. In the women's restroom on the first floor, Harry, Ron, and Hermione are in danger. The 3 paper cranes are respectively to find Principal Dumbledore, Professor McGonagall, and Professor Snape. Near the women's restroom, Lu Sen could smell a horrible odor from a distance. It was like stinky tofu was poured into a dry toilet and a string of firecrackers was thrown in. It stinked. Lu Sen snorted coldly. He knew that this was emitted from the giant monster. There was no time to cast a bubble head spell or a breath-holding spell to dispel the disgusting smell. Saving people was the most important thing. Lu Sen kicked open the toilet door without hesitation. The toilet was in a mess. A row of wash basins against the wall were smashed to pieces, and several toilet cubicles collapsed. But the most eye-catching thing is the giant monster holding a big stick in the middle of the toilet. The troll's skin was grey and looked like granite. Its head was bald like a big coconut, its arms were extremely long, and its legs were short and thick. Its feet had deformed toes and thick, hardened skin, and were as huge and rough as tree stumps. But Lu Sen couldn't help but burst out laughing. That's it. The reason is simple. This giant monster is not as tall as imagined. Lu Sen estimated that it is only half a head taller than Hagrid. Just this thing scared the hell out of all the students in the school. Haha, it's nothing. Chapter 35. The troll was attracted by the sound of kicking the door. It turned its head blankly, and after finding Lu Sen, it seemed very happy. It immediately walked towards him staggeringly, dragging its stick. At this time, Lu Sen saw that one of the doors of the toilet cubicle was opened a crack, and Harry and others stuck their heads out with surprise. They had obviously been in a panic and their wizard robes and faces were covered in dust and sweat. What's wrong with you? You're just a giant monster and you're in such a mess? Where's the talisman I gave you? Lu Sen quickly walked around the giant monster waving a wooden stick and said. The thrilling scene made the three little ones sweat. Harry and Ron picked up the rubble and water pipes on the ground with ease and threw them at the stupid troll to help Lu Sen attract the troll's attention. They threw and retreated, circling the troll. Apparently, that's what they did before. After they got together, Ron said, your talisman accidentally got wet, it stopped working. Harry and Ron looked at each other awkwardly. Hermione, who was protected behind them, was still a little frightened and kept staring at the troll nervously. Keep your head down. Hermione warned loudly. Several people dodged the troll's stick again and were forced into a corner by the troll. But this time, Lu Sen quickly took out the thunder wand and skillfully activated the thunder flame lightning sword. He asked Harry and the other man who were hiding behind him, "What's wrong with you? Didn't I tell you to find Hermione and leave? That should give you enough time, right?" After saying that, he swung his sword and only the handle of the stick was left. The giant swung again and realized that something was missing. It used its small brain to think for several seconds before it realized that the stick was broken. After a few more seconds, it realized that it was the little guys in front of it who did it. It was so angry that it waved its big hands and hit us. Lu Sen was not panicked. He would not show mercy to the enemy who came to his door. With a flick of his wrist, the thunder flame form instantly changed. The sword body quickly became longer, and the heat emitted became more terrifying. He whispered quickly, lighting technique thunder flame 40-meter sword mode. Die. Before he could finish the word die, Hermione behind him suddenly grabbed Lu Sen and said, "Wait. Do we have to kill people? Can't we try a gentler method?" The thunder flame light sword was at the critical moment of mode transformation, but was interrupted by Hermione, causing it to miss the conversion node of the rune model and the interlocking magic collapsed instantly. Oh! Oh! Don't put it out! Without the support of magic, the shadow of the 40-meter broadsword that was about to take shape flashed twice in the air and then disappeared. The next moment, the giant monster's big hand slapped Lu Sen fiercely. The powerful force knocked him out and smashed the last toilet cubicle. Suddenly, wood chips and smoke flew everywhere, and Lu Sen was crushed in the collapsed wood and rubble. There was no movement. No. Lu Sen! Harry and Ron exclaimed immediately. They didn't expect that the situation that was originally in their grasp of victory would be reversed in an instant. The two were extremely anxious and wanted to go to rescue, but they couldn't get away. The giant monster is already very close, and the smell of it is as suffocating as biological weapons. Harry and Ron separated to the left and right in tacit understanding. They ran and waved their arms, trying to attract the troll's attention and create a chance for their companion to escape. Hermione gasped immediately. She had only kindly reminded Lu Sen to prevent him from being blinded by killing, but she never expected such an accident to happen. Ron tried desperately to throw rocks at the troll, but for the slow-witted big guy, it was not even enough to tickle him. Unfortunately, Harry stepped on the slippery floor tiles and fell to the ground. Before he could turn over, he was caught by the troll's big hand. The troll grabbed Harry's feet and lifted them above his head. He tilted his head and thought for a moment, thinking that this kind of food should be similar to lamb, so he opened his big mouth and was about to bite it. Hermione suddenly let out an earth-shattering scream. Harry bent his body desperately to avoid the troll's bite, but his head was immediately grabbed by the troll's other hand, and there was no way he could escape the next bite. Ron's eyes were bloodshot and he was about to go forward and fight the troll. Suddenly, a hand stretched out from the rubble behind them, followed by a crash of bricks and stones falling, and Lu Sen actually stood up from the ruins. He didn't have time to pull his feet out from the deep pit. Seeing Harry's situation, he quickly drew talismans in his hands and then slapped Harry with a palm at the last moment. A faint golden light hit Harry at the last moment before the troll bit him. The giant's teeth chewed hard, and there was a sound of crunching. Several sounds that made people's scalps numb came from its mouth. But the next moment, the troll made a puzzled humming sound, and he felt that something was wrong with the food in his mouth. His brain circuit did not understand what happened at all, but it seemed that something hard fell out of his mouth. There was a crisp sound similar to the sound of a stone falling. Hermione and Ron looked over quickly and found that it was a broken and yellowed front tooth. Harry opened his tightly closed eyes. He thought he was going to be bitten in half, but suddenly a warm current protected him. The troll's stupid brain only now felt the pain in his mouth, all his teeth were broken. The wailing giant angrily threw Harry down from his hand, and the other party immediately fell freely from a height of more than 3 meters. But a golden light flashed on his body, and the moment he touched the ground, everyone only heard a melodious humming sound, like the sound of a church bell. The surprise came so suddenly that the three realized what Lu Sen had done and turned to look over. Lu Sen's foot was stuck, but he still responded to the others, "Golden Bell Talisman, is it effective?" Before they could say anything, the giant monster with broken teeth wailed and opened its mouth, revealing its bloody gums. It stomped its feet in pain, waving its arms around, destroying everything around it. Lu Sen searched anxiously for his magic wand. The elementary spells he knew were mostly those related to daily life and auxiliary. He still had to rely on the Thunder Flame Lightning Sword for lethality. At this moment Harry came to his senses and shouted, "Ron! We have to do something." The two were very nervous and thought quickly about what spell they could use, but they found that they only knew a levitation spell. So, without any prior agreement, they both said in unison, "Wingardium Leviosa." 2 slightly larger bricks flew lightly over the giant monster's head. Hermione also quickly drew out her wand, intending to help them fight the troll. Lu Sen shouted, "Hermione! Help me find my wand." Hermione weighed the pros and cons in an instant, simply agreed, and began to help him look for it. Harry and Ron controlled the stones and smashed them firmly on the troll's head, but the troll was in a frenzy due to toothache, and these 2 small stones could not cause any damage or dizziness. Instead, they attracted the troll's attention. Hermione suddenly shouted in surprise, "Found it!" At this time, the troll had cornered Harry and Ron and was about to reach out to catch them. Lu Sen quickly said, "Great! Throw the wand over here." Hermione took 2 steps and threw the wand in her hand as quickly as she could, using all her strength. Lu Sen took it and looked at it. "Hey! This is not my magic wand." Hermione blinked. "Oh no! Isn't this black wand in her hand Lu Sen's? How come she threw it wrong when she was nervous?" The troll had already caught Harry and Ron, who had nowhere to retreat. It held 1 child in each hand. It was in no mood to eat them, so it just picked them up and crushed them in its hands. As Harry and Ron wailed, the troll gradually increased its strength. "It's too late. Hermione! Levitation spell!" Lu Sen shouted, holding Hermione's wand in his hand, ready to go. Hermione understood. "Okay. Wingardium Leviosa. Transform quickly. Enlarge quickly. Done. Pa. Puff." At the same time, several professors rushed over after hearing the news, and the first to bear the brunt was the crazy Snape. When he opened the door, he heard a heavy object fall to the ground, and then, a red and white mixture splashed all over him. Snape wiped his face with a trembling face, revealing a desperate and crazy look. But when he saw the 4 little wizards standing there intact, he breathed a sigh of relief. Especially when he found a pair of green eyes, he completely let go of his worries and his eyes became clear again. Chapter 36. The images in women's restrooms are now completely restricted, the entire screen is mosaiced, and can only be broadcast in black and white. Professor Snape, who dealt with strange animal organs and potions with surprising designs all year round, didn't react much to this. Professor McGonagall, who followed behind, vomited with a groan, followed by Professor Flitwick, whose face turned pale. The next person to come was Quirrell, who started dancing with joy after taking a look and then fainted on the spot with a caw. By the time Headmaster Dumbledore finally arrived, the situation had been brought under control, and with the help of several professors, Lu Sen and his companions finally recovered from the hell. Professor McGonagall's face was still grim. She tried hard to calm her pounding heart and said tremblingly, Who can give me a reasonable explanation? Why didn't you return to the common room? And you left the troll. Vomit. Thinking of the scene of the room full of red and white things just now, Professor McGonagall felt sick again. Harry and Ron looked at each other and stammered, we. At this time Hermione volunteered, Actually, it was me. I read about the troll in a book and wanted to solve it myself to prove myself. But I messed up. If they hadn't come to rescue me, I really don't know what would have happened. Lu Sen sneered, Forget it. What's the point of you taking the responsibility? No one made any mistakes. Just tell the truth. Hermione, who hadn't been blamed for many people, clenched her fists and glared at the talkative Lu Sen. Harry felt that Lu Sen's words made sense, so he thought for a moment and said, Professor, we made Hermione cry. She ran to the bathroom and cried all afternoon. Seeing that his friends had told the truth, Ron continued, Lu Sen predicted that something bad would happen, so he asked Harry and I to come to Hermione in advance. Lu Sen hurriedly whispered, SHH. Can you please not mention the prophecy? But the professors had heard it and were looking towards him. Lu Sen had no choice but to give up and said, Well, I asked them to come, but I don't know what happened in the middle, and they missed the chance to avoid the giant monster. Harry explained, After we found Hermione, we stood outside the toilet door and persuaded Hermione to come out. But when Hermione heard that it was Lu Sen's prophecy that made us come here, she got even angrier. She couldn't say anything. We've worn our lips out from talking to her. Ron looked at Hermione helplessly. Harry pushed up his glasses and said, Then we saw Peeves. He helps Filch patrol every day. It would be terrible if he found us standing outside the girls' toilet door sneaking around. Yet. So, we ran to the toilet, and before we could coax Hermione down, the troll appeared out of nowhere. Ron shrugged helplessly. Harry went on to say, The troll didn't notice us at first, and we could have taken Hermione away quietly, but suddenly. Lu Sen didn't understand this before, so he couldn't help but ask curiously, What happened suddenly? Ron pretended to be angry and said, Suddenly your communicator rang. The troll found us immediately. It almost smashed us into meat patties. Lu Sen said embarrassedly, You guys are so slow, do you blame me? When I saw your text message asking for help, everyone was evacuating to the common room. I couldn't find the teacher, so I had to use a paper crane to send a message, and then I came to save the situation in person. Snape said angrily, So you foolishly put yourselves in danger. Do you know how dangerous trolls are? Many adult wizards may not be able to deal with them. Lu Sen glanced at a certain saintly scholar and said indifferently, It's okay. If someone didn't dislike slicing, I could have done it with one sword. The scene would have been much more beautiful. Snape said viciously, That's because you are lucky enough. Adult trolls are much taller than this. And they are extremely resistant to magic. Little wizards like you are not enough to fill their teeth. Lu Sen suddenly realized that this guy who was only half a head taller than Hagrid was just a baby. No wonder the little wizards were so scared when they heard the troll was coming. But what's the use of high magic resistance? The physical damage of the Thunder Flame Lightning Sword is unacceptable. Thousands of degrees of plasma flames plus 100,000 volts of thunder. Even steel will be split for you to see. Professor Flitwick gave fair praise, Nice magnification spell. But what is the appearance? Everyone turned their eyes to the center of the field, where there was a large iron lump as big as a double bed. Lu Sen scratched his head and said, Professor, it's a book. The first thing that came to my mind was books. Reading makes people kind. As he said that, he glanced at a certain academic master. A certain top student tried hard to hide his body behind Harry and Ron and lowered his head to count the floor tiles. Professor McGonagall had no comment on Lu Sen's transfiguration. Although the shape was a bit rough, the changes in material and weight were very appropriate. She had never seen many students of this age who could do this. But the old man's stomach churned again when he thought of the giant monster meat stuffing that was mosaicked under the giant steel book and splashed to every corner. At this moment, Harry accidentally saw that Snape's leg was injured and bleeding. Before Harry could say anything, he was frightened by Snape's stern eyes and dared not say a word. They rescued their companions and destroyed the giant monster, but the professors did not give Lu Sen and his companions extra points. Instead, they sent them away. The common room was decorated with a Halloween theme, and all the food was delivered. The little wizards were eating, drinking and playing happily. A few people quickly washed and changed their clothes and joined in. The three little ones recalled the fight with the giant monster just now, and they all felt like they had survived a disaster. It was also a little exciting. But Lu Sen didn't feel anything. It was just a giant monster, a small scene. Hermione's saintly behavior almost led to a big mistake. Lu Sen didn't mention it again, but the look in his eyes became more and more unpleasant. Harry and Ron were quite calm. After experiencing the thrilling adventure together, they completely put aside their past grudges with Hermione and chatted happily about everything. They no longer felt that they disliked each other. Ron exaggerated the story of how the group bravely fought the giant monster and told his classmates the story. The atmosphere in the room instantly reached a climax. Lu Sen left quietly after eating and drinking. Although he was the main force in destroying the giant monster, he did not feel any sense of accomplishment at all, and was even a little worried. There is no other reason, just not enough firepower. Lu Sen reflected on it and realized that he had relied too much on the Thunder Wand before. He only knew one move, the Thunder Flame Lightning Sword, and its variant the 40-meter broadsword mode. Both of these are single-target lethal magic that are excellent at breaking through defenses, but their only means of attack is slashing. Before, Lu Sen thought that he could chop down an opponent like the giant monster by himself, or two at a time. He even thought that he could chop down Voldemort with this move alone. But after today, Lu Sen finally understood the complexity of the battle. At that time, I just got interrupted by someone and lost the initiative on the battlefield. How will I face the mysterious and unpredictable Dark Wizard in the future? Insufficient defense. Too few means. The most critical thing is, insufficient firepower. After Lu Sen finished summarizing, he began to flip through the book. Chapter 37. Lu Sen came to the study room inside the door and frantically searched for attack spells. After a while, Lu Sen sighed dejectedly. After he encountered danger, he realized that the spells in the textbooks were at most for dealing with ghosts and zombies, and the focus was on life and production. How could offensive spells be written in elementary, junior high, and high school textbooks? Another point is that high-level Chinese practitioners are all magic and martial arts dual cultivation. Magic assists, flying swords kill enemies. The physical fitness is very strong, and with the help of flying swords and magic, the attack power is directly off the charts. It is troublesome to attack directly with magic. In addition, high-level warlocks have a wide variety of magic weapons. Attack, defense, and assistance complement each other. But Lu Sen hadn't even mastered the elementary object control yet. He could only make small objects float, which was far from being able to kill enemies with a flying sword. He hadn't even passed the basics of weapon refining yet. Western wizarding schools, including Hogwarts, have more shortcomings, and the knowledge taught is also rare in terms of powerful magic. But this is normal, in a peaceful era. In Lu Sen's impression, throughout the entire plot, only a few magic spells such as the Killing Curse, the Fiery Curse, and the God of Magic invented by Professor Snape when he was in school can be considered powerful. The former two are black magic that is not allowed to be used, but the latter can be studied if there is a chance. Think about the battles between wizards in the movies. Although the scenes are fancy and the light effects are colorful, most of them are just some weird little evil curses. The most powerful combat magic is actually the disarming spell. Lu Sen picked up a pen and paper and wrote a letter to Hwaxia's uncle, asking about attacking techniques. After thinking about it, he asked at the end of the letter whether China has developed a magic-driven communicator, and whether China has a method to solve the problem of werewolf transformation. Lu Sen still sent this letter to his father and asked him to fax it directly back to China. Then Lu Sen wrote another letter to Dumbledore, strongly suggesting that the school strengthen security measures. You can't rely on professors when you're in trouble. You should start with a defense system that everyone can use. Lu Sen remembered that when Voldemort attacked the school, all the armor and statues could move and act as cannon fodder. This function should be used frequently. And there should be more practical lessons in defense against the dark arts and magical creatures classes. Thinking of this, Lu Sen really hopes that Lupin can come to class. Of course, the letter to Dumbledore was just a complaint. Lu Sen learned from his mistakes and decided to develop some self-defense weapons. With the successful experience of Ron's Whomping Willow Wand, Lu Sen made 2 more spare wands with ease, and after thinking about it, he gave one to Neville. He simply upgraded the one he gave to Ron and made some minor adjustments to improve its stability. He then found the Weasley twins to discuss the principles of the Licorice Wand and the Mischievous Fake Wand. When the twins heard Lu Sen talking about this, they were no longer sleepy. The two of them had a lot of experience in making magic props, and after a conversation, Lu Sen immediately had an epiphany. The licorice wand is used by wizards for cooking and snacks. It looks like a wand, but it tastes like sweet licorice. Even a young wizard who has never learned magic can emit a fragrant breeze when waving it. The principle contained in it is very valuable for reference. It has designed a semi-cured breeze spell that can be activated by just waving it. No need for the user to provide magic power or chant a spell. What does it mean to have your own magic power? In theory, muggles can use it. The fake magic wand is a funny prop. You won't notice anything unusual at first, but if you use it to cast a spell, any spell will only have ribbons and gold stars sprayed out from the tip of the wand. And it's accompanied by funny sound effects. Lu Sen would not play with such meaningless joke items, but the internal principles can also give Lu Sen inspiration. The seemingly useless and funny magic wand has an interesting internal structure. The caster's magic power and spells will be decomposed by the runes inside the wand, and the input magic power will be used to stimulate the designed fixed magic. What is this? This is a converter. With such a reference, Lu Sen quickly designed a plan, and then worked with the twins and Cedric to produce a trial product. The next step was to find an experimenter. Argus. What are you busy with? The best experimenter Lu Sen found was Argus Filch, the administrator hated by the little wizards. The old man has been very happy recently. Peeves no longer causes him trouble and even helps him patrol everywhere. This makes Filch admire Lu Sen even more. He put down the brush in his hand, turned around and said in surprise, "It's Master Lu Sen. Hello. I heard that you killed a giant monster on Halloween night. That's amazing." He wiped his hands on himself, smoothed his sparse hair, tried to look presentable, and explained, "Ah, I'm cleaning the words on the wall. Naughty little wizards always like to scribble on them. How annoying. Peeves has caught 3 this week. But I still can't manage them all. You know, the castle is too big." Lu Sen looked and saw a red heart painted on the wall with the initials of 2 little wizards in the middle. Filch must have been scrubbing with a brush for a while, and his forehead was covered with sweat. Unfortunately, the effect is average, only half of the outline was erased. "Try this. I made it recently. It should be suitable for your job." Lu Sen handed the test sample to Filch. The old administrator took it in confusion, for he had never seen such a strange thing. There were 2 tubes in the front, a small circle at the bottom of the middle part with a sharp hook inside, and the back was bent into a strange arc with a very strange shape. Filch turned it over and over, peered into the tube with one eye squinted and asked, "Master Liason, what is this for? Is it a muggle torture device?" Lu Sen quickly stopped Filch's dangerous move. He took it and demonstrated the correct way to hold it, and introduced it. "This is called, Energy Storage Multifunction Directional Magic Semi-Automatic Releaser." Filch was confused. What kind of magic or device is this? Lu Sen said with a profound look, "You can call it, magic shotgun. Or magic sprayer. Yes, this thing looks like a classic shotgun. It has 3 commonly used magics solidified inside. Do you see the paddles on the side? Clean, repair, and spell stop. The last paddle is for safety to prevent accidental activation. First switch to the function you need, then hold the spray gun like this, with your finger on the trigger, the nozzle facing the target, and pull the trigger. Come and try it." Lu Sen introduced carefully. Filch was skeptical, mainly because the shape was beyond his understanding. The old squib had never seen a gun. But when he pulled the trigger and instantly erased the stubborn graffiti on the wall, he was completely stunned. Tears welled up in Filch's eyes. He murmured, "Is this solved? This is magic. I can do magic. Master. Did you see it? I just did magic. With this magic shotgun." The old man became more and more excited as he spoke, and he hugged the spray gun in his hand tightly, as if he had found the love of his life. Lu Sen had no doubt that if he was not here, Filch would kiss this magic gun hard. He then explained how to load and change the gun, as well as some precautions. Filch wrote them down one by one, then thanked him profusely and left. He wanted to find Peeves to show this new magical prop. Lu Sen looked at his back and smiled with satisfaction. From then on, Filch became more and more high-spirited, and from time to time he could be seen wandering around Hogwarts with a magic spray gun in his hand. But some muggle-born little wizards would be confused. "It has a blue handle, a white shaft, and a green head. It's even made of plastic. Why is Filch holding a toy gun? Chapter 38. In the morning, in the common room, Harry looked in the mirror and asked Lu Sen in confusion, "Why did you turn my hair red?" Lu Sen put away his smirk and tried to sound serious as he said, "This is to test the effect of the one-button hair styling device." Ron said curiously, "Harry, your hair is redder than mine." He excitedly hugged Harry and put his head against his. He asked, "Lu Sen, look at this. If you don't know, you would think there is another Weasley in Hogwarts." When Harry heard this, he imagined that it would be nice if he had 6 brothers and a sister. Seeing that the 2 of them were having fun, Lu Sen quietly put away the wooden comb-shaped one-button hairdresser. But at this moment, 2 hands suddenly appeared on his shoulders. "Wow, it looks like we have a new family member," Fred joked. "That's right. And maybe there's one more," George followed up. "Come on, Lu Sen. Join the Weasley family," the twins said in unison. They snatched the hairdressing tool that Lu Sen had not had time to hide, turned the knob to red with ease, and then combed Lu Sen's hair twice. So Lu Sen's black hair turned into fiery red in an instant. As for why they were so familiar with the operation, it was because Lu Sen and the twins made it together. Fred said with great interest, "Not bad. The effect is better than expected." George high-fived him and said, "It looks like the experiment was a success." Lu Sen touched his hair helplessly. Now the whole common room was occupied by red-haired people. But it was good this way. Harry would not feel special. He said to the twins, "The hair dyeing function of the hair styling device is quite effective. I will find a girl to try the hair straightening function later. If it works, I will buy this design. From now on, every time a one-button hair styling device is sold, you 2 will get a share." The 2 looked at each other, turned their heads and whispered for a while, and then one of the twins discussed with Lu Sen, "Lu Sen, can we come up with a name for that hairdressing device? For example, Weasley Magic Wooden Comb." Lu Sen's eyes widened immediately and said, "I didn't expect you guys to have such a business mind." Then he thought, the twins had put a lot of effort into making the magic sprayer for him 2 days ago, and this time the Weasley Magic Wooden Comb was also well made. Lupin is busy with work, and the twins will be the best helpers to realize his creative ideas in the future. So Lu Sen pretended to be embarrassed and said, "Okay. The naming rights are given to you. But the exclusive sales rights and patent usage rights belong to the Galaxy Group. The commissions are distributed according to levels. The more you sell, the more you get. How do you think?" The 2 of them immediately nodded happily in agreement and gave Lu Sen a big hug. At this time, Hermione came to the common room from the girls' dormitory, and Ron immediately said, "Hermione, look at us. Any changes?" He shook his head to remind her. Since the troll incident, Hermione has been much nicer to Ron and Harry, and occasionally even lends them her homework to copy. Harry and his friend privately told Lu Sen more than once that Hermione was much cuter than before. But Lu Sen didn't notice it, because the elementary school bully didn't change much towards him. Hermione cooperated and showed a surprised expression, "Wow! Your hair. Why is it all red? Cool." While the 3 little ones were happily chatting, Lu Sen adjusted the Weasley Magic Hairstylist to the straightening position and quietly handed it to Harry. Harry understood what Lu Sen meant by looking at him, and attacked quickly when Hermione wasn't paying attention. "Harry! What are you doing?" But after she finished speaking, Hermione touched her hair and found that her messy hair, which she usually never bothered to take care of, had instantly turned into smooth and flowing straight hair. Harry said quickly, "So beautiful. Hermione, straight hair suits you better." Ron also came back to his senses from his admiration and said, "Yes. Very beautiful. Like a princess." Hermione's cheeks instantly turned red, and she said embarrassedly, "Really? How can it be so beautiful?" Suddenly, a 2 stars supporting the moon drama caused by straight hair was staged in front of the Weasley twins and Lu Sen. Fred whispered in a stern voice, "It's great to be young." George went on to say, "Each generation is stronger than the last. We wouldn't have been so attentive when we were this age." Lu Sen suddenly ate a handful of compound dog food and said dryly, "The effect is good, I'm going to class first." This class was potions class, and Lu Sen was the first to arrive in class and wait for class to start. It was not until Snape stood on the podium that Harry and the other 2 hurried into the classroom just as the bell rang. Normally, Snape would have deducted a few points from a few people, but he immediately noticed the difference in Harry. Snape's heart seemed to be hit by a hammer. The fiery red hair and emerald green eyes seemed so distant yet so familiar. Now they were back to him again. He was stunned for a moment, and Harry and the other two had already returned to their seats. Snape lingered around Harry intentionally or unintentionally throughout the class, and taught Harry the skills of mixing potions in detail. All the little wizards in the class were used to it. After class, Harry excitedly discussed what he had learned from the class. Potions class had now become Harry's favorite class, and he could even discuss potion formulas with Hermione. Lucien suddenly stopped and said to the others, "I left something behind. You go first." Harry and Ron were busy chatting with Hermione, but they still symbolically acknowledged it. Lucien didn't care at all. The three little ones had complicated emotions and he didn't want to get involved. When I pushed open the classroom door, Snape was still in a daze at the podium. When he saw Lucien come in, he immediately returned to his cold and serious look. Lucien smiled and said, "Professor, have you received the sincerity I prepared? Are you satisfied?" Snape showed a shocked expression, but quickly calmed down and said in an imperceptible voice. Then he tapped his fingers rhythmically on the desk and said condescendingly, "Don't you just want me to help you make the medicine? Bring me the recipe. I want to see how complicated a potion that takes 8 months to make is. This is, for academic research. Not for the damn Lupin." Lucien thought, "You are still stubborn, right? Good." So he said in surprise, "That's great, Professor. When the potion comes out, your name will be written together with Damocles Belby in the list of great potion makers in modern times. You will save countless broken families and suffering people." Having said that, Lucien deliberately paused and stared at Snape with unchanging joy in his eyes. When the other party became impatient, he continued, "Oh, I almost forgot. The materials for brewing the potion and your hard work fee are all provided by the Galaxy Group. If there are no other questions, it's settled." Lucien blinked and didn't get to the point. He took a tentative step back and pretended to leave. Snape finally couldn't hold it anymore. He looked at the ceiling and pretended to be calm and said, "Let him keep it up." Lucien had a sly smile on his face, but he said, "Keep what? Professor, I don't understand." Snape's face suddenly darkened, and he stopped pretending, "Mr. Lucien. We don't need to play dumb. I don't know whether you heard it from Lupin or from some other channel, and I don't want to get into the details. We are all smart people, so let's not beat around the bush. Let the child remain the way he is today, this is my condition. And what else do you know? I mean your prophecy." Lucien blinked his eyes. He heard Harry say that Snape was injured in the leg on Halloween. The three little ones guessed that Snape went to steal something hidden under the three-headed dog. Before, he tricked Snape into believing that he had a bloody disaster and it was related to Hell, the three-headed dog of Hell. Snape probably asked this because he was beginning to believe in the accuracy of his prophecy. So he thought for a moment and said, "Okay, let's consider it as a benefit of our cooperation. Let me see. Well, the person you care about most is about to be in danger of death, and you will be the key to saving him." Snape suddenly became excited. He limped but quickly rushed to Lucien, grabbed his collar and said, "You mean Potter? Tell me the details quickly. I know you can do it." Lucien was startled, it seemed like he was overexcited. He patted Snape's arm gently, signaling him to calm down. Snape also realized that his emotions were out of control. He let go of Lucien, but still stared at him without blinking. Lucien thought about it and decided to round up the situation. Chinese wizards often say, "Man can conquer nature." It means that different choices people make can change their predetermined fate. So the picture seen in the prophecy will change. As long as we are adequately prepared, we can better deal with the fate that may come and tilt the outcome in a positive direction. The universe is pluralistic, the timeline is changeable, and the only thing that remains unchanged is human beings. Therefore, prophecies are just for reference. Snape was still not satisfied with this explanation, it's too vague. Tell me exactly when. What will happen? Lucien had no choice but to assure, "Don't worry, Professor. I can't just sit there and watch. I will make preparations and minimize the danger. I can also tell you that Harry will be safe this year." After comforting Snape, Lucien took out the prescriptions and herbs used in the experiment, and explained several auxiliary materials that Damocles Belby needed to verify, as well as the task of boiling medicine that Snape needed to carry out simultaneously at school. Suddenly Snape thought of something and said with a sinister smile, "By the way, have your werewolf lackey send me 20 ounces of blood as soon as possible. I need it for the experiment." Lu Sen, isn't that a bit much? 20 ounces equals 567 grams, more than a pound. Once Snape entered the realm of potions, he became extremely serious. He was too lazy to listen to Lu Sen's explanation. He stared at the prescription with his eyes and waved his hand without raising his head. "You can go." Lu Sen was about to leave when he suddenly noticed Snape's injured leg and his heart moved. He blinked and asked, "Professor, is your leg okay? I have a new healing technique I learned. Would you like to try it?" Chapter 39. On Halloween night, everyone went to find the troll, but Snape was quick to sense something was wrong and ran to protect the Philosopher's Stone. As a result, he was bitten by Fluffy. This just confirmed Lu Sen's prediction. Thinking of this, Snape's face suddenly became unhappy, and he said coldly, "It's none of your business." But Lu Sen laughed, "Hee hee. I guess the saliva of the three-headed dog has the magical power to prevent blood clotting? Your wound is not healed yet, right?" Snape responded with a greasy slap on the back of his head and a snort. "How about letting me try?" Lu Sen thought for a while and said. He had learned a few tricks from Mrs. Binns from the school hospital before, and combined with the Chinese healing spells to conceive a magic. He was just looking for a guinea pig. Snape turned his head, looked him up and down, and said disdainfully, "Just you? You know how to heal." Lu Sen has become somewhat accustomed to the other party's way of communicating. He doesn't seem to be able to chat calmly, and every sentence he says is full of sarcasm. Lu Sen even secretly wondered if James and the others bullied Snape because of his vicious tongue. Although school violence is wrong, Snape's bad temper really deserves a beating. Lu Sen originally wanted to use the spare wand, but seeing Snape's attitude, he decided to give him some extra spice. So the sealed thick black rolling pin crossed out, and the sealed thunder wand reappeared in the world. Snape sat on the chair reluctantly and lifted the hem of his robe. The gauze inside was soaked with blood. After Lu Sen used the spare wand to perform a cleansing spell, he solemnly picked up the thunderbolt wand and kindly, secretly, reminded, "Professor, the next one is my original healing spell. It may be a little painful, please bear with it." Before Snape could think of some sarcastic words to sneer at him, Lu Sen instantly showed a solemn, eerie smile and shouted, "Fluorescent flash!" "Snape, what?" "Lu Sen." I saw the tip of the wand light up, and a soft white light like a veil came out of it. This tangible light lightly covered the wound, and the place where it was touched instantly made a hissing sound. Upon closer inspection, a faint black gas evaporated from the wound. Snape's expression twisted instantly. He felt like Lu Sen was burning his legs with a soldering iron. And it was accompanied by a strong electric current. "Ah! What are you doing?" Snape's hair exploded into a hedgehog under the effect of the electric current. His whole body shook involuntarily, and his facial features changed into different expressions uncontrollably, which looked very funny. Lu Sen nodded with satisfaction and adjusted the frequency of his magic power slightly. After a few breaths, the burning and electric sensations completely disappeared, replaced by a cool, comfortable feeling, and a little itchy. Snape's eyes flashed with disbelief, and then he arrogantly put on a critical look and said, "What kind of magic is this? What evil book did you learn it from?" While Lu Sen was using illumination magic to treat, he made up a story. As we all know, illumination magic has been used for healing since ancient times. This makes sense, right? I saw in a book called Journey to Middle-earth that there was an old wizard who looked very much like Dumbledore. When he encountered a monster, he used a sword in one hand and illumination magic in the other, and beat the monster until it cried for its parents. Well, it seems to be done. In just half a minute, Lu Sen not only cleared the toxins and magic left by the three-headed dog, but also completed the treatment of the wound. Snape's calf was almost bitten through by the three-headed dog, but now it has not only fully recovered, but there is no scar at all. A new form of illumination healing light. The experiment was a success. But when Lu Sen looked up and saw Snape enjoying himself, he immediately said, "Professor, the treatment is basically complete, but there is still one last step." Seeing that the wound on his leg was really healed, Snape did not resist. Lu Sen instructed Snape to straighten and relax his legs, with his feet off the ground, and his thighs and calves at 90 degrees. Then he used the thunder wand as a hammer and hit the opponent's knee with a bang. Snape grimaced in pain and his calf kicked forward uncontrollably. Lu Sen suppressed his laughter and said, "This is called the knee-jerk reflex. It means your leg is completely healed. Then I won't bother you while you boil the medicine." Snape's face suddenly turned pale. He realized that the last move was completely unnecessary. Lu Sen quickly turned around and left. He gently closed the door and said with a sly smile in his heart, "You tsundere. You still have to make some medicine for me. Haha. The wolfsbane potion is just around the corner." Within a few days, Snape had a breakthrough. Lu Sen pushed open the door of Snape's private lounge. The space inside was not very large. In the middle was a test table filled with various medicine-making instruments, and the surrounding walls were nailed with wooden shelves. There were all kinds of large and small bottles on it, all of which were rare medicinal materials collected by Snape. Many unknown animal tissues soaked in potions were still slowly wriggling. The scene was quite terrifying and dark. Snape, who was concentrating on refining the medicine, was concentrating on dropping bright red liquid into a pot of boiling liquid. With each drop, the color of the liquid in the pot would change dramatically, and it would emit a strange smell that would make people doubt their lives. Lu Sen quietly drew a breath-holding charm on his hand and gently stuck it on his body. Suddenly, Lu Sen's nose was saved with this charm, he no longer needed to breathe. After waiting quietly for about 20 minutes, Snape looked up. He took out a note from a pile of parchment with densely written small words and handed it to Lu Sen. "These are the auxiliary ingredients I have ruled out. There is no need to waste time experimenting with them. Also, the cooking process of Damocles takes a lot of detours. Give me his contact address. I want to communicate with him directly." Snape lifted his hair that was blocking his view and looked up at Lu Sen and said indifferently. Lu Sen was shocked by Snape's research speed, but he believed in Snape's judgment that he was definitely the best in the world in terms of potions. Soon Snape got in touch with Damocles Belby, and it was a very direct way of contact, a phone call. The two sides communicated directly through the Galaxy Group's communicator. It was the first time that Lu Sen heard Damocles Belby's voice. The other party seemed a bit arrogant, but when Professor Snape pointed out the mistakes in the prescription directly, the other party quickly became humble. The conversation between the two potion masters was very clear when each word was separated, but when they were put together, Lu Sen couldn't understand a word. However, the distribution of wolfsbane potion was quickly replanned, and after the two agreed on their respective experimental goals, they began to conduct experiments simultaneously. Through Snape's improvement, the brewing time was shortened from 8 months to 5 months. But Lu Sen still felt it was too slow. Fortunately, Hwaxia's uncle sent a package and a reply letter, which brought Lu Sen a surprise. The letter responded to Lu Sen's questions one by one, starting with the communicator. "China is different from the closed and conservative West. Ordinary people in China have been using technological products in depth, and are accustomed to using magic to transform and strengthen technological products. Commonly known as magic modification. For example, the Motorola mobile phone that was given to Lu Sen in the package. It looked quite primitive, with a small red screen that could only display a few numbers, and its only function was to make and receive calls. It was still 1991, and mobile phones were already very advanced. At the same time, mobile phones were still the dominant force. But it is engraved with special communication talismans, which can realize ultra-long distance calls. At the same time, it has spells such as reinforcement, spirit gathering, waterproofing, and fireproofing. As long as you don't use it to block bullets, this thing will never break. And if it runs out of power, just inject a little magic power. This is a good thing." Lu Sen rubbed his hands and said he would open it and take a look when he has time. After Lu Sen tested it, he was able to call home normally even if he was far away from Hogwarts Castle. For example, Hagrid's home had a good signal. Unfortunately, cross-border calls are not possible for the time being. China had planned to deploy communication flying swords in low Earth orbit to enhance the communication range. By then, global calls will not be a problem. However, the Ministry of Magic of various countries opposed this plan, fearing that China's move would expose the magic world. As for the problem of offensive spells, Hwaxia's uncle advised Lu Sen not to pursue offensive power blindly. Victory is not only about destroying the opponent. Many inconspicuous spells can also play a role in defeating the enemy. You must open your mind and apply what you have learned. He also suggested that Lu Sen should study the teaching materials of the Chinese cultivation world seriously. After he has done dozens of sets of 3 years of college entrance examination and 5 years of simulation papers, he will almost understand it. Lu Sen. The package also contained several specially made talismans for exorcising evil spirits and a fresh keeping container that could automatically return to China. The talisman is used to seal evil spirits and prevent people bitten by zombies from being infected with corpse poison. Dark creatures like werewolves are not seen in China at all, so there is no special research on them. I can only try it first. The container allows Lu Sen to collect blood samples from werewolves, and after activation it will automatically fly back to China for research by the Central Science and Practice Affairs Administration, CSASA. Lu Sen thought about it and sent the exorcism talisman and the container to Lupin, asking him to try the effect of the talisman during the next full moon. He also asked him to draw a pound of blood and put it into the container, then find a deserted place to activate it and send it back to China. Lupin, wait a minute. You want to draw blood again? How much? Chapter 40. The research and development of Wolfsbane potion is gradually getting on track. By then, Lupin will only need to lock himself in the office on the full moon night to spend it safely. Lu Sen thought about what happened to Lupin in the original plot, and suddenly remembered that he had been ignoring a guy who was just eating and waiting to die since the start of the school year. So he went back to the dormitory and asked, Ron, is your scabbers shedding a bit? Ron was discussing Quidditch with Harry. He nodded and said, yes, it's very old. It's rare to see such a long-lived mouse. So it's normal for it to lose its hair. I've been going to Snape's laboratory quite often recently. There are plenty of potion materials there. Next time I'll ask you if there's any medicine that can keep mice alive. Ron was overjoyed. He usually always looked disdainful at scabbers, but if scabbers could become healthier, he would be very happy. So Ron took out his fat rat from his pile of clothes, touched it a few times, and handed it to Lu Sen, saying, thank you, buddy. Great. I've always wanted to change a pet, but if Banban can stay healthy, I don't mind keeping it for a few more years. Lu Sen took Banban and looked at him carefully. This fence-sitter who killed Harry's parents and resurrected Voldemort has been lurking in the Weasley family for many years. He has not been exposed yet. Thinking that the mouse in his hand was a bald middle-aged man with a wretched appearance, Lu Sen hurriedly returned it. I'll bring the medicine back in a few days and give it a closed-door treatment. But after that, Lu Sen secretly contacted Lupin on the communicator and gave him a shopping list. Of course, he said that Snape needed it for research. Lupin, are you sure? The next day, Lupin sent someone to collect the items and sent them to Lu Sen. Some of them were pet potions that were already in Diagon Alley, and some were unique to the Muggle world. For example, there is a small blue pill that is very popular in Muggle pharmacies and health food stores. Lu Sen showed a kind, evil, smile, took out 3 pills and ground them into powder, mixed the powder into the pet nutritional potion, and fed it to the naive, hateful, fat rat Banban. Ron looked puzzled and asked, what kind of supplement is this? Why is there blue powder? Lu Sen took out his prepared speech and said seriously, I guess Banban can live so long because he has the blood of a rare magical animal. But he is too lazy, which results in his blood not being activated. I use nutritional potions to replenish its body, and vitality potions to stimulate its instincts. This will restore it to its youthful state. Combined with exercise and rest, this little mouse will be healthy. Ron immediately felt that it made sense, so he entrusted Scabbers to the other party. Lu Sen thoughtfully arranged a new luxurious mouse house for Banban. It was made of stainless steel. There was a sturdy running wheel inside for him to exercise. It also had a comfortable bed, a water bowl, a food bowl, a toilet, a mirror, a bathtub, and other living utensils. Lu Sen also carefully prepared a playmate for it, a pink toy mouse made of stainless steel. It is strong and wear-resistant. After locking Banban in the luxurious mouse house, Lu Sen covered the outside with a gauze curtain and cast a silencing spell. It's reasonable to rest. Every day, Lu Sen secretly observes Banban's condition and arranges its diet and increases or decreases its supplements appropriately. Hygiene is also very important, so clean it up every morning and evening. On the first day, the mouse was very excited. The running wheel was smoking. In addition, it loved the toy mouse. The next day, the mouse was a little tired, so it was okay to increase the dosage. The toy mouse was a little worn out. On the third day, the mouse was a little thin. From now on, give it 2 doses of health, sterilization, medicine every day. At the same time, improve its food. Add a little bit of pet magic supplement. And add a little bit of hair growth potion. On the 5th day, the mouse was in good health and plump. The hair growth potion also worked, and now he was as furry as a rabbit. On the 6th day, the mouse became clean and occasionally looked in the mirror. I gave the mouse 5 tablets of blue vitality potion, but there was no reaction and the mouse slept for a day. On the 7th day, the mouse's appetite increased and he gained some weight. Just like the previous days, he took another 5 pills, but the mouse showed no reaction. He slept all day. On the 8th day, life was very regular, eating, sleeping, licking fur, looking in the mirror, eating, and sleeping. Lu Sen closed his scientific research notebook with satisfaction. It seemed that Banban's health plan was a complete success. The mouse, which was back in Ron's hands, became very afraid of Lu Sen, but Ron was very satisfied. This fat mouse finally had enough hair. But it seemed more wilted. Its eyes became softer. Was it an illusion? After entering November, the temperature has unknowingly dropped below 0, but the group's construction business has not stopped. Lupin thought of a good idea. He would set up a huge translucent barrier at the construction site in advance, and use a wonderful magic to keep the temperature inside at the state of early autumn, so that the concrete would not be difficult to form due to the low temperature, and the foundation would not collapse and deform when the flowers bloomed in the spring of the following year. Lu Sen thought this method was very good, and could be called the magic greenhouse construction technique. As the president and chairman of the group, Lu Sen waved his hand and rewarded Comrade Lupin with double salary this month. It's a big company. Double salary is a basic operation. The clothing business is also doing well. After Mrs. Weasley fully adapted to her new job, she continued to improve the quality and aesthetics of clothing, and sales have repeatedly broken new records. At the beginning, Mrs. Weasley was quite conservative about style. Like people from traditional wizard families, she could only design old sweaters and unchanging wizard robes. But since Lu Sen ordered a batch of Muggle fashion magazines for her, Mrs. Weasley has found the door to a new world. After that, every outfit she designed has the vigor of the new era while retaining the noble mystery of the wizarding world. Lu Sen was shocked after reading it and decided to set up a formal clothing branch and named it Sanli Clothing Co., Ltd. Sanli is taken from the names of 3 great mothers, one of whom is a woman who raised 7 children and is also a successful example of a home which starting a new business, Mrs. Molly Weasley. One is the legendary woman who used her life and love to protect her young son and sacrificed herself to destroy the Dark Lord Lily Potter. That is, Harry's mother. And there is Lu Sen's mother, Julie, who is the company's major shareholder behind the scenes. When Lu Sen expressed this idea, his 2 friends were very excited. A clothing company named after the mothers of 3 people. Lu Sen was worried that Harry would object. After all, this would remind people of the tragedy and would also deeply open the scars in Harry's heart. And the idea that maternal love destroyed the Dark Lord would also deprive Harry of his savior halo. But Harry bravely agreed. He sincerely hopes that people will know how much his mother loves him, and he is very grateful to Lu Sen for commemorating his mother in this way. As for fame, little Harry said he doesn't care at all. So Lu Sen gave each of them 5% of the shares as the naming rights. Ron received it on behalf of his family, and Harry received it for himself. Neither of them was willing to accept such a gift of wealth, but Lu Sen had a high martial arts value and forcibly dragged their fingerprints onto the contract. Lu Sen comforted them and said, "It's okay. I can find a rich man to invest in the company in a few minutes. I'll let him pay for all your shares." Seeing the 2 men's looks of disbelief, Lu Sen took the contract and went out. Not long after, he sold 5% of the shares at 3 times the market valuation. The mysterious investor is of course a certain lily lover who likes to make medicine. But Lu Sen will not reveal this to the 2 of them. Lu Sen submitted the story behind the Sanli brand to many newspapers. Wizards have always been extremely concerned about Harry and the Dark Lord, and such news quickly made the front page headlines of major newspapers. Mrs. Weasley and Harry's mother once became a hot topic of discussion among people after dinner. Harry's popularity did not decrease at all, but instead skyrocketed. In the past, the little fans would just greet Harry excitedly, but now they would sincerely praise him by saying, "Harry, you have a great mother." Quite a few people would also give him a big hug and a few words of encouragement, including many of his senior schoolmates. This made Harry feel dizzy every day. Ron was quite envious of this, but Hermione always had complicated feelings like a cat protecting its food. Soon, the 3Ls on the galactic emblem appeared more and more on young wizards. Another thing that all the little wizards talked about was a new thing Lucien created, the Hogwarts Forum.